Chapter 38-48. Swoosh. 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 The evil spirits in the valley scattered when they felt Prado's aura. Even the evil spirits who occupied the best spots ran away as fast as they could, as if they were in a hurry to be reincarnated. Not long after, other than Prado, there were no other evil spirits in the valley. It became empty. I'm smart. This method is really effective. There are no more evil spirits in the valley. The slovenly Taoist priest said proudly as he strode into the valley. The slovenly Taoist priest walked to Prado's side and grabbed him. "Who?" Prado was furious. However, he immediately shut his mouth when he saw the slovenly Taoist priest. He clearly remembered that it was this sloppy Taoist who had beaten him to such a state with a single move. "What? Do you have a problem with me?" The slovenly Taoist priest held Prado in his right hand and looked at him with hostility. Prado was silent. He lowered his head and sighed. He knew that he had no chance of turning the tables in this man's hands. Therefore, he stopped struggling. Zhuowen, the slovenly Taoist priest, and the other two started to get busy. They found Salado's stone room in the valley. They were surprised to find that the chaotic energy in Salado's stone room was very rich. It was as rich as the Hong sex when it was at its peak. According to the slovenly Taoist priest, the chaotic energy here was even richer. Zhuowen knew that there should be a high-quality chaos gem vein under the valley. The four of them were pleasantly surprised. They started to decorate their cave abodes in the stone room. The stone room was too shabby. It was not suitable for cultivators to live in. If they did not decorate it, it would be very uncomfortable. The four of them spent half a day decorating their respective cave abodes. The slovenly Taoist priest ran to the entrance of the valley excitedly and tied Prado up on a stone pillar at the entrance of the valley. He said that Prado would be their guardian from now on. He could prevent evil spirits from entering the valley without permission. This made Prado suffer. He was actually used as a shield and was trapped at the entrance of the valley. This was really too humiliating. He was a dignified fighting-level evil spirit. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? After the cave residences were set up, the four of them went to their respective residences to cultivate. It would be a waste if he did not cultivate in a place with such rich chaotic energy. Zhuowen arrived at his cave mansion and sat cross-legged on the stone bed. He took out the spirit ring that he had snatched from Yun Kanglin. The restriction formation on the surface of Yun Kanglin's spiritual ring was quite complicated. Even with Zhuowen's fourth-tier array skills, it took him 10 days to crack the restriction formation. The moment Zhuowen opened the spiritual ring, he saw an unimaginable amount of chaos crystals, divine pills, divine herbs, and many other precious cultivation resources. Yun Kanglin deserved to be called a god realm ascendant. She was indeed rich. The resources in this spiritual ring were dozens of times more than what he had obtained in the 100 outer regions. Furthermore, Zhuowen knew that Yun Kanglin had spent 100 million chaos gems to purchase the 3-fire true mirror. If Yun Kanglin had not spent the 100 million chaos gems, the amount of chaos gems inside could be described as a mountain. Zhuowen moved his divine thought and everything in the spiritual ring was transferred into the great world by Zhuowen. Then, he flipped his right hand and a broken copper mirror fragment appeared in his palm. It was the 4th-tier astral weapon, 3-fire true mirror, that was auctioned off by the World Auction House. Zhuowen looked at the broken copper mirror in front of him with a burning gaze. He could feel the blazing temperature surging from the surface of the copper mirror. Moreover, this temperature was not ordinary. Not only could Zhuowen's physical body feel it, but his soul could also feel it clearly. He did not doubt that if the temperature was high enough, his physical body and soul would be incinerated. Zhuowen took a deep breath and his gaze became very serious. He had already seen the power of a 3rd-tier astral weapon. It was truly terrifying. A fourth-tier astral weapon would probably be much, much stronger than a third-tier astral weapon. The artifact spirit in the three-fire true mirror would definitely be stronger than Zhuowen imagined. Although he had a treasure like the Supreme Word Stone, he was still a little worried about whether he could completely tame the artifact spirit of the three-fire true mirror. After all, in the 100 outer regions, the use of astral weapons was inseparable from the blood sacrifice. The relationship between the astral weapon spirit and the wielder was more of a cooperative relationship than a master-servant relationship. As long as the wielder could sacrifice enough living beings to feed the astral weapon spirit would be able to lend a portion of the astral weapon spirit's power. It did not matter if the wielder was Zhang San or Li Si. As long as the wielder fed the astral weapon spirit, the wielder would be able to use the astral weapon spirit's power. However, Zhuowen's method was purely taming. It would cause the artifact spirit's backlash. Back then, he had only tamed second-tier astral weapons. Now, he was taming fourth-tier astral weapon spirit. To be honest, this was a bit too much. Let's try it first. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He still decided to give it a try. He derived a strand of divine sense and entered the three-fire true mirror. Then, the scenery before his eyes constantly changed. In the end, he discovered that he had appeared in a wasteland. At the end of the wasteland stood three towering mountains. Among these three mountains, there was a mountain in the middle that burned with blood-red flames. The fierce light was reflected in the sky and then reflected on the ground, dyeing the wasteland a blood-red color. On the two sides of this blood-red mountain were two mountains with extinguished flames. The mountains were bare and pitch black. Other than the wasteland and these three strange mountains, there was nothing else in the surroundings. Zhuowen did not hesitate. He lifted his foot and rushed toward the blood-red mountain in front of him. Not long after, he arrived at the foot of the blood-red mountain. From afar, the three mountains seemed to be very close. However, now that Zhuowen had arrived at the foot of the mountain, he could see that the distance between the three mountains was actually quite far. Zhuowen silently stood at the foot of the mountain. He raised his head and indifferently looked at the mountain that was burning with blood-red flames before him. Terrifying heat pervaded the air, as if he was standing in a furnace. However, Zhuowen did not seem to feel it. He looked indifferently at the blood-red mountain and said, "You should be the three-fire true mirror's artifact spirit, right? Why don't you show yourself?" Zhuowen had just finished speaking when a terrifying heat wave gushed out from within the mountain. Strange crackling sounds could be heard in the air. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He circulated his vast grand mist god force and stood on the spot as if his feet were rooted to the ground. He silently looked at the blood-red mountain in front of him. He. You have some strength. It seems that the owner's strength is not bad, although his cultivation is a little weak. But it doesn't matter, I will give you power that surpasses your imagination. And you only need to sacrifice your soul mark, become my slave, and acknowledge me as your master. You will immediately obtain an inexhaustible amount of power in this world. A majestic voice came from the blood-red mountain. Then, Zhuowen discovered that the terrifying heat wave around him had disappeared, and the blood-red flames on the mountain's surface had also disappeared. A man stood at the peak of the mountain. Chapter 38-49. Zhuowen frowned. His cheeks were slightly flushed. He had forcefully withstood that terrifying heat wave, and his aura had become unstable. The fiery-haired man looked down at Zhuowen, his eyes filled with curiosity. In his eyes, Zhuowen's aura was only at the early stage of the void god transformation realm. In his eyes, this kind of cultivation was not even worth mentioning. In his opinion, the heat wave he had just unleashed was enough to destroy this person's body and soul. However, what surprised him was that not only was Zhuowen unscathed, he had not even taken a single step back. The fiery-haired man was now deeply interested in Zhuowen. As long as Zhuowen was willing to acknowledge him as his master, he would acknowledge him as his servant and bestow his power for Zhuowen to use. Of course, the fiery-haired man never thought that Zhuowen would reject him. He was the artifact spirit of a rank 4 astral weapon. In the central state, it was practically the highest grade of astral weapon. Almost no one would reject his somewhat unreasonable request. One had to know that his previous owners had acknowledged him as their master without hesitation after learning of his request, and he had bestowed them with a corresponding amount of power. "I want all of your power." Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he spoke indifferently. The fiery-haired man slowly narrowed his eyes and coldly looked at Zhuowen. "Did you just say that you want all of my power? Among all the previous owners, your appetite is the largest. Unfortunately, you are my servant and have no right to command all of my power." Zhuowen's gaze was as calm as an ancient well as he spoke again. "If you become my servant, then all of your power will be mine." The fiery-haired man finally became serious. Flames of fury and killing intent rose in his eyes. "Human, you're really pushing your luck. Who do you think you are? A Void God Transformation Realm ant wants to control me? Even a Void God Transformation Realm powerhouse would have to acknowledge me as his master in front of me." The fire-haired man's expression turned cold. He slowly stepped forward and the extinguished mountain was once again ignited with blazing blood flames. He bathed in the blood flames as he walked down the mountain peak. A terrifying pressure came crashing down, and the entire wasteland seemed to tremble. Zhuowen's face changed. The 3 Fire True Mirrors artifact spirit was too strong. It was much, much stronger than the purple gold toad's artifact spirit. However, his spiritual consciousness had already entered the 3 Fire True Mirror. Naturally, he could not retreat just like that. He wanted to see if the Supreme Word Stone could subdue this artifact spirit. Bang! Zhuowen took a step forward and executed the Grand Mist movement technique. He transformed into a ghostly purple shadow and instantly appeared behind the fiery-haired man. Rumble! Zhuowen punched out, and the power of the Grand Mist Soldier mantra poured out in torrents. Numerous weapon phantoms condensed within Zhuowen's fist and blasted into the fire-haired man's back. Bang! However, to Zhuowen's disbelief, the fiery-haired man turned around at an unbelievable speed and threw out a backhand punch. When the 2 fists collided, a terrifying energy ripple exploded, and the air rumbled. Zhuowen grunted and flew backward. He spat out a mouthful of sweet blood. The fiery-haired man took a step back and looked at Zhuowen in surprise. "Are you really in the Void God Transformation Realm? You are actually so powerful. This is really beyond my expectations. Unfortunately, you are still too weak. You want me to acknowledge you as my master? This was simply wishful thinking. I think you should just die here." The fiery-haired man stomped his right foot on the mountain. Suddenly, the blood flames in the mountain condensed into a huge fire qilin. It roared and charged out. Zhuowen's body was still in midair. When he saw the fire qilin rapidly approaching him, a ruthless look appeared in his eyes. He ignored his injuries and forcefully executed the Grand Mist movement technique. He barely managed to dodge the fire qilin's fatal attack. However, the fire qilin's speed wasn't any slower than his. It actually followed closely behind him. Meanwhile, Zhuowen had suffered serious injuries. If he continued to flee like this, his injuries would worsen. At that time, his speed would also decrease. In the end, he would be caught by the fire qilin. At that time, he would really die without a burial place. 10,000 sword slash. A ruthless look appeared in Zhuowen's eyes. He tapped his glabella. Instantly, streaks of spiritual sword intent shot out. At this moment, he immediately released 10,000 streaks of spiritual sword intent. The terrifying spiritual sword intent filled the air. It was filled with a terrifying destructive power that could tear anything apart at any time. Zhuowen had already comprehended the ancient sword visualization painting to the last level. His spiritual sword had successfully reached the heaven-crushing 5 transformation realm. And every streak of spiritual sword intent he released contained the power of the heaven-crushing 5 transformation realm. 10,000 streaks of spiritual sword intent of the same power was extremely terrifying. Even a yin-yang transformation realm cultivator would be torn to shreds. Bang, 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 bang. Countless streaks of spiritual sword intent slashed the fire Qilin's body, sending countless sparks flying. Meanwhile, the fire Qilin roared furiously. Terrifying crimson flames erupted from its body and drowned out the surrounding spiritual sword intent. However, there was really too much spiritual sword intent. It was impossible to destroy them all in a short time. Humph. You're quite capable. The fiery-haired man looked at the fire Qilin that was trapped by the 10,000 streaks of spiritual sword intent and snorted coldly. He took a step forward and charged directly in front of Zhuowen. An ant will always be an ant. Die. The fiery-haired man's eyes were cold and emotionless. His fist landed on Zhuowen's chest. Splat. His fist directly pierced through Zhuowen's chest. Then, he discovered in shock that Zhuowen's hands were tightly gripping his right fist. A last-ditch struggle. The fiery-haired man frowned slightly. He wanted to withdraw his right fist, but unexpectedly, Zhuowen held it tightly. Moreover, the fiery-haired man saw Zhuowen's strange smile. He suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Supreme Word Stone, come out. Zhuowen roared furiously. A purple light erupted from his glabella. Then, an ordinary-looking stone flew out from the depths of his glabella and smashed onto the fiery-haired man's head. The fiery-haired man was not prepared at all and was directly hit by the Supreme Word Stone. Then, his expression changed and became extremely frightened. Primordial Stone. You actually. The fiery-haired man roared furiously. He gathered all the strength in his body and began to resist the power of the Supreme Word Stone. However, Zhuowen held his right fist tightly, making it impossible for him to use his full strength. Ant, let go of me. The fiery-haired man's expression changed drastically. Terrifying crimson flames erupted from his right fist. He planned to completely burn Zhuowen to ashes. However, what surprised him was that although Zhuowen was much weaker than him, there was some kind of higher-level power circulating in his body. He actually managed to block the attack of his crimson flames. Just like that, the fiery-haired man's body was absorbed by the Supreme Word Stone inch by inch under Zhuowen's mocking gaze. Bang! Chapter 3850. A bitter smile tugged at the corners of Zhuowen's lips. This 3-fire true mirror's tool spirit was a little too powerful. In the past, he would first tame the tool spirit before using the Supreme Stone to absorb it. Now, however, he was almost beaten half to death. If he hadn't fought with his life on the line, perhaps even the Supreme Stone wouldn't have been able to subdue the fiery-haired man. When Zhuowen's divine sense returned to his body, he saw that Zhuowen was sitting cross-legged on the stone bed. His face was pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Zhuowen clutched his head. His divine sense was already powerful enough, but just then, it had almost dissipated. Now, his divine sense was extremely weak, and it would probably take a very long time for it to recover. The only thing that comforted him was that the Supreme Stone had completely absorbed the 3-fire true mirror's tool spirit. He should now have the right to control the 3-fire true mirror. With this in mind, Zhuowen's gaze fell on the damaged bronze mirror in his hand again. The surface of the bronze mirror was dull and lusterless, as if it were really an ordinary bronze mirror. Zhuowen didn't try to use this bronze mirror. His current condition was too weak, and the rank 4 astral weapon was extremely domineering. If he suffered a backlash from the rank 4 astral weapon's power, he would really regret it. Zhuowen put away the three-fire true mirror. He planned to heal the injuries to his divine sense first. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Zhuowen's divine sense had completely recovered. Moreover, in these 3 months, his divine sense had also improved significantly. He was almost half a step into the heaven-crushing 6th transformation stage. However, he lacked a more powerful divine sense visualization image, so he couldn't successfully break through. The ancient sword visualization image only had 5 levels, and it could only cultivate one's divine sense to the heaven-crushing 5th transformation stage at most. He had already cultivated the ancient sword visualization image to the pinnacle, and couldn't advance any further. If he wanted to improve his divine sense, he had to obtain a higher-level visualization image. And in these 3 months, Zhuowen's cultivation didn't slow down in the slightest. His shattered God Force had already transformed into vast Grand Mist God Force. Absorbing the chaos energy and refining the evil spirits could increase his cultivation base rapidly, greatly increasing the efficiency of his cultivation. In a short span of 3 months, his cultivation level rose from the initial stage to the middle stage of the Nihility God transformation stage. One had to know that it would take at least a few thousand years for an early-stage Void God transformation realm cultivator to reach the mid-stage Void God transformation realm. However, Zhuowen was different. He cultivated the primordial Grand Mist technique, and there were almost no bottlenecks. As long as he had enough energy, he would be able to break through quickly. This was the foundation of his existence. It was a pity that the primordial technique he possessed was incomplete. At most, he could cultivate it to the yin-yang transformation stage. Now that his cultivation was gradually approaching the yin-yang transformation, he knew that he had to quickly find the second primordial stone and perfect the primordial technique. After his spirit recovered, Zhuowen took out the three-fire true mirror again. He walked out of his cave abode and realized that the doors of the 3 cave abodes were tightly shut. It seemed like they were still in seclusion. Zhuowen had no intention of waking them up. Instead, he left the valley. He arrived at the eastern shore of the Evil King Island. Purplish gold energy circulated around his body, and the evil spirits around him did not dare to approach Zhuowen. Zhuowen looked at the three-fire true mirror in his hand, and then looked at the boundless sea in front of him. He took a deep breath and began to channel the vast primordial energy into the three-fire true mirror. He wanted to test the power of the three-fire true mirror. Buzz! The three-fire true mirror spewed out a strong blood-red light and let out a deafening and terrifying sound that reverberated in his ears endlessly. Then, Zhuowen realized that the three-fire true mirror was emitting a terrifying and powerful suction force, and it was rapidly absorbing the energy in his body. Fuck, this suction force is too strong. Zhuowen's face changed drastically. The suction force was too strong, and the vast primordial energy in his body was rapidly being sucked dry. At this speed, the energy in his body would be sucked dry in half an incense stick's worth of time. At that time, he would still be alive. At this point, Zhuowen was no longer able to control his own body. The suction force was so strong that it had exceeded his strength. Unable to pull himself out, he could only watch helplessly as the three fires true mirror greedily absorbed his Grand Mist God Force like a vampire. After an unknown period of time, Zhuowen's consciousness was about to blur, and the suction force of the three-fire true mirror finally stopped. Zhuowen forced himself to open his eyes. He could vaguely sense a vast, towering, and terrifying pressure not far in front of him. The three-fire true mirror in his hand spewed out powerful blood-red flames. These flames soared into the sky, and they began to entangle with each other. The blood-red flames were too vigorous. They soared into the sky and dyed the sky red. If one looked at it from afar, they would see that in the sky above the Evil King Island, there was an endless sea of blood-red flames beside the black fog that never dissipated. This blood-red flame was extremely vigorous, and it was enough to compete with the black fog above the Evil King Island. Although the blood-red flames area was smaller than the black fog, it was not far off. Fortunately, the evil King Island was very remote, and there were few people around. Otherwise, if it was seen by cultivators, they would definitely guess that there was some kind of strange treasure here, and it would attract unnecessary trouble. The endless blood-red flames continued to entangle with each other. Then, Zhuowen saw that these blood-red flames began to condense at a certain point in the middle. In the end, he realized that the blood-red flames had condensed into a towering blood-red mountain. It was a mountain that burned with a strange blood-red flame. Zhuowen was not unfamiliar with this mountain, because this blood-red mountain was exactly the same as the one he saw in the Three Fire True Mirrors artifact spirit space. A suffocating and terrifying pressure was released from the blood-red mountain, and it spread across the entire Evil King Island. Originally, the countless evil spirits that were wandering around Evil King Island all stopped when they felt this terrifying pressure. Then, they froze on the spot and shivered. Under this pressure, they felt the shadow of death. Zhuowen supported his body with difficulty. With a thought, the blood-red mountain fell into the sea in the distance. Rumble. Huge waves rose up from the sea in the distance, and then countless white smoke was formed by evaporation, floating up in a spiral form. Then, an unprecedented tsunami appeared in the sea, and many creatures in the sea were burned to ashes by the terrifying temperature. Zhuowen saw that with the Evil King Island as the center, the sea within a range of trillions of miles was deeply affected. The white smoke that evaporated enveloped the surface of the sea, as if it was in a fog. Zhuowen could acutely feel that the sea level had dropped by more than 10 meters. He was shocked. The sea was extremely vast, but the entire sea level had dropped by more than 10 meters after just one hit from the blood-red mountain. What a terrifying concept. Chapter 38:51. Fuck, what's going on? Why is there white fog everywhere? And the entire Evil King Island shook just now. The slovenly Daoist brought Dokyo and Daokong over and stopped not far behind Zhuowen. They were shocked to see what was happening around Evil King Island. Daowen, this commotion isn't caused by you, right? The slovenly Daoist's gaze landed on Zhuowen as he asked in a daze. Zhuowen said embarrassedly, I was testing the power of the Three Fire True Mirror just now and accidentally caused such a commotion. The slovenly Daoist was relieved to hear this. Zhuowen had told them about the Three Fire True Mirror. It was a genuine rank for astral weapon and its power was unparalleled. The slovenly Daoist and the others felt that it was only natural for it to cause such a commotion. You scared me to death. I thought it was your own power that caused it. The slovenly Daoist touched his chest and said. Sect leader, junior brothers, I might have to make a trip to the middle state. Zhuowen suddenly said. Why are you going to the middle state? The slovenly Daoist asked curiously. My divine soul has reached a bottleneck and I need a higher level visualization image. I want to see if I can buy the visualization image I want in the middle state. Zhuowen said in a low voice. The slovenly Daoist priest fell silent when he heard that. Daowen, I've let you down this time. You joined the Hong sect but you can't even cultivate a higher level visualization image. You have to go to the middle state to find one yourself, the slovenly Daoist said with a trace of guilt on his face. Zhuowen smiled and shook his head. Sect leader, you don't have to feel guilty. Joining the Hong sect was my own decision and I don't regret it. After all, the Heaven and Earth Universal Sutra is much more precious than many other techniques. I should be more grateful to you for giving it to me so selflessly. The slovenly Daoist was relieved. He was happy that Zhuowen knew how to repay his kindness. You've offended the Hong Martial Divine Sect and even snatched the Three Fire True Mirror from the World Auction House. When you reach the central region, you must be careful. The sloppy Daoist warned. Senior brother, you're blessed with good fortune. Your trip to the central continent will definitely be smooth sailing. When the time comes, don't forget to bring me and Dokio some fun things. There's nothing on this evil king island, it's simply too boring. Dao Kong acted like an old man, and asked for things without any hesitation. Dokio, on the other hand, was stammering. His face was flushed red, and he couldn't say a single word. Dao Kong patted Dokio's shoulder and laughed, "Senior brother, Dokio and I have the same idea. He also wants something fun." Dokio's face was flushed red, but he still looked at Zhuowen and said, "Senior brother, be careful on the way." Zhuowen rubbed Dao Kong and Dokio's heads and said, "Don't worry. Your senior brother, am very strong. There won't be any danger in the central region. Don't worry. When I return, I'll bring you some good things." After saying that, Zhuowen looked at the slovenly Taoist and smiled. Then, he took out the divine ship and left the evil king island. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the deck of the divine ship. After handing over the control of the divine ship to Xiao He, he took out a scroll from the outside world. He looked at the scroll in front of him with a burning gaze. This scroll was the geographical map of the Heshu region that he had bought from the World Auction House at a high price. When Yu Sha had taken out this geographical map, she had unfolded a corner. In that corner, he saw a geographical shape that was similar to the map fragment in his divine soul. Zhuowen slowly opened the geographical map, unfolded it completely, and spread it on the ground. When the scroll was fully unfolded, it was 10 meters long. Moreover, in this 10-meter space, the geographical shape inside was like a real place. It was as if he was looking down on the vast land from the sky. Zhuowen browsed through it and his gaze finally locked onto a place in the middle of the geographical map. His gaze became more and more serious. "It's actually hidden here," Zhuowen muttered to himself, but his expression did not look good. In the middle of the geographical map, there was a mountain peak drawn. This mountain peak was called the Fallen Star Mountain. In the Fallen Star Mountain, there was a place called the Absolute Beginning Cave. The second primordial stone was hidden in the Absolute Beginning Cave. The reason why Zhuowen's expression changed so much was because the Fallen Star Mountain was not simple. It was a famous and terrifying place in the Heshu region. According to legend, creatures of the primordial star system had fallen on this mountain. Later on, this mountain became a taboo. This was where the name Fallen Star Mountain came from. The stars referred to creatures of the primordial star system. Moreover, the Fallen Star Mountain was extremely dangerous. Even great carefree realm experts were not absolutely safe in the Fallen Star Mountain. Although Zhuowen was quite confident in himself, it was still too difficult for him to enter the Fallen Star Mountain with his current cultivation. Unless he cultivated the primordial technique to the yin-yang transformation, he might have some confidence. There's no need to think about the Fallen Star Mountain for now. Let's enter the Hongwu Shengzhen first. Zhuowen muttered to himself. His Grand Mist movement technique and Grand Mist soldier art still had a lot of room for improvement. After he entered the Hongwu Shengzhen and his strength improved enough, he would head to the Fallen Star Mountain, enter the Absolute Beginning Cave, and search for the second primordial stone. 3 days later, Zhuowen arrived at the Central Continent's giant city. Before he entered the city, he had already changed his appearance to that of a harmless young man. Even his aura was completely different. After he entered the Central Continent, the first thing he saw was the wanted posters floating in every street corner of the Central Continent. The main character on the wanted posters was naturally Zhuowen, and the one who issued the wanted posters was naturally the Hongwu Divine Sect. Moreover, other than Zhuowen, he also saw the portraits of the slovenly Taoist, Dao Kong, and Dokio on the wanted posters. Zhuowen shook his head. This Hongwu Divine Sect was indeed like a lingering spirit. They really persevered in their pursuit of him. Even the slovenly Taoist and the other two from the Hong sect were wanted as well. Fortunately, we escaped quickly in the valley. The slovenly Taoist's image is too obvious. Sikong Chiyu will definitely recognize him. At that time, Sikong Chiyu might really chase after us. Zhuowen muttered to himself. Thinking about the slovenly Taoist being wanted, he was glad that he made the prompt decision to leave after the slovenly Taoist refined Prado. Sikong Chiyu was a god domain transformation expert. If she reacted and chased after them, how could they still be alive? Other than that, he also noticed that the central continent was filled with spies of the Hongwu divine sect. If he didn't change his appearance and swaggered into the central continent, the Hongwu divine sect would have immediately dispatched experts to capture him. While he was casually strolling around the central continent, he noticed that most of the people around him were discussing the heavenly auction house. It was said that not long after the rank 4 astral weapon was auctioned off, the entire auction house was destroyed by the 8 gods Zhan sect master Feng Yunfei. Chapter 38-52. Zhuowen listened to the discussions around him, and his heart was as clear as a mirror. Back in the valley, although Yun Kanglin had been beaten to the brink of death by Prado, she had not died yet. He felt that Yun Kanglin's death might have something to do with the few people present at that time. Their goal was probably to shift all the blame onto the World Auction House. As Zhuowen walked on the streets of Middle Ground, he silently thought about how to obtain a high-level visualization image. Have you guys heard about the Divine Firmament Soul sect? Yes, I did. I really didn't expect that the Divine Firmament Soul sect would be willing to open their visualization building to the public. That place contains all kinds of the highest quality visualization images in Middle Ground. At that moment, Zhuowen passed by a restaurant. The conversation between 2 cultivators inside attracted Zhuowen's attention. Zhuowen was no stranger to the Divine Firmament Soul sect. After joining the Hong sect, he had already figured out the geography of Middle Ground and the various factions. This Divine Firmament Soul sect was the only sect among the top 10 factions in Middle Ground that focused on cultivating the soul. They viewed the soul as the most supreme thing, a treasure that surpassed the physical body. The cultivators of this sect devoted most of their energy to the cultivation of their souls. It was precisely because of this principle of the Divine Firmament Soul sect that countless powerful cultivators in the sect collected all kinds of visualization images from all over the place. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to say that the Divine Firmament Soul sect was the sect with the most abundant visualization images in Middle Ground. And in the Divine Firmament Soul sect, the pavilion where all kinds of visualization images were stored was the visualization building. It included almost all the visualization images that the Divine Firmament Soul sect had collected over the countless years. Back then, before Zhuowen came to Middle Ground, he had also considered the Divine Firmament Soul sect's visualization building. However, the visualization building was not open to the public. It was only open to the sect's disciples. Unless Zhuowen attacked the Divine Firmament Soul sect and snatched the visualization image. As one of the top 10 factions in Middle Ground, the Divine Firmament Soul sect's foundation could be said to be very deep. Wouldn't Zhuowen be courting death if he attacked them alone? Furthermore, he did not have any enmity with the Divine Firmament Soul sect. He could not possibly attack them just because he wanted their Earth visualization diagram. But now, the Divine Firmament Soul sect had actually opened the visualization building to the public, which surprised Zhuowen. Didn't this mean that even if he wasn't a disciple of the Divine Firmament Soul sect, he was still qualified to enter the visualization tower to view the visualization diagrams? Thinking of this, Zhuowen straightforwardly entered the restaurant next door and went to the private room where the 2 cultivators were still chatting. The 2 cultivators who were originally chatting enthusiastically stopped talking when they saw Zhuowen approaching. They looked at Zhuowen cautiously. "Fellow Taoists, I am Tao 1. Zhuowen introduced himself with a smile, and then said to the waiter at the side, "Waiter, give me 3 jugs of 10,000-year nectar." "All right. 3 pots of 10,000-year-old nectar." Hearing this, the waiter beamed with joy and quickly left. 10,000-year nectar was their restaurant's best immortal wine, so the price was naturally not cheap. "If the 2 of you don't mind, can you let me sit in this seat? And those 3 pots of 10,000-year-old nectar will be my treat. Zhuowen said generously. Their eyes lit up as they thought to themselves that this person was really generous. They had never met before, but he actually treated them to 10,000-year-old nectar without saying anything. And their initial wariness towards Zhuowen gradually faded. Brother Dao Wen is really forthright. I am Chensen, and he is my close friend, Lu Yin. Chensen had a slender figure and was very thin. He had an elegant temperament. On the other hand, Chensen's close friend, Lu Yin, was tall and burly. When the two of them sat together, the visual contrast was huge. When Chensen introduced him, Lu Yin cupped his hands towards Zhuowen and did not say a word. Zhuowen could tell that Lu Yin did not speak much and followed Chensen's lead, so he did not mind. At this moment, the waiter had already served the 3 pots of 10,000-year-old nectar. Zhuowen personally poured wine for the two of them. Just now, I heard the two of you talking about the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's visualization building opening to the public. I was very curious. Can the two of you tell me in detail? Zhuowen said with a smile. After Chensen and Lu Yin drank the wine in their cups in one gulp, they both revealed intoxicated expressions. Chensen said rather enthusiastically, Brother Dao Wen, you don't even know this? You should have just arrived in middle ground, right? Zhuowen smiled and said, yes, I just entered the city today. As I have been fascinated by the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's visualization building for a long time, I was very curious when I heard the two of you talking about this. Actually, it's like this. Chensen didn't try to hide anything. Instead, he told her everything about the Divine Firmament Soul Sect. It turned out that the reason why the Divine Firmament Soul Sect opened the visualization building to the public was all because of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect Master's son, Qin Ruebua. Qin Ruebua was a rare genius of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's younger generation. Especially in the aspect of the soul, Qin Ruebua's talent was even more outstanding than the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's ancestors. In just a short 1,000 years, he had cultivated the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's #1 visualization image, the demonic origin demonic painting, to lesser mastery. The demonic origin demonic painting was extremely famous in Middle Ground. It was said to be the most powerful visualization image below the Great Carefree Realm. If one could cultivate the demonic origin demonic painting to perfection, their soul would be so powerful that it would be almost invincible below the Great Carefree Realm. However, the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's demonic origin demonic art was very difficult to cultivate. The strongest sect master of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect had only managed to cultivate it to the greater mastery stage. No one had ever cultivated it to the greater mastery stage. However, Qin Ruebua had suddenly appeared out of nowhere and cultivated the demonic origin demonic painting to greater mastery in just a short 1,000 years. This was definitely a record in the Divine Firmament Soul Sect. This was because the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's strongest sect master had taken 10,000 years to cultivate the demonic origin demonic painting to greater mastery. However, Qin Ruebua had shortened the time by 10 times. All the cultivators in the Divine Firmament Soul Sect were full of expectations. They believed that Qin Ruebua would create history in the Divine Firmament Soul Sect and cultivate the demonic origin demonic painting to an unprecedented level of perfection, leading the Divine Firmament Soul Sect to a new height. And this time, the visualization building was open to the public all because of Qin Ruebua. Qin Ruebua had set up an arena outside the Divine Firmament Soul Sect and let out a bold statement, inviting all the young people in Middle Ground to come and compete with him in the soul. If anyone could defeat him, they would be qualified to enter the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's visualization building to study for 10 days. Hearing this, Zhuowen finally understood the cause and effect of the visualization building's opening to the public. And he was a little interested in Qin Ruebua. Chapter 38-53. Zhuowen bade farewell to Chensen and Lu Yin and left the restaurant. He took out his divine ship and headed straight for the Divine Firmament Soul sect. The Divine Firmament Soul sect was located in the eastern part of Middle Ground and occupied a huge mountain range. At this moment, in front of the Divine Firmament Soul sect's lofty mountain gate, there was a huge arena. Below the arena, there was a crowd of people bustling about. It was very lively. And on the arena, a young man in white stood proudly with his hands crossed over his chest. He stood silently in the center of the arena with his eyes slightly closed. And on the pure white steps behind the arena stood 3 old men in long robes. Powerful auras surged from their bodies. This aura soared up and fell into the sky, transforming into large hands that were holding up a huge pavilion. Zhuowen's attention was immediately attracted by the pavilion. This was because on the signboard above the pavilion's entrance, 3 large words were written in calligraphy: Visualization Building. This is the Visualization Building. Zhuowen's gaze was fixed on the building floating in midair. He knew that there were many visualization diagrams hidden in this building. As long as he could enter the visualization building, he could use the Great Word Stone to fuse with all the visualization diagrams inside and create a powerful visualization diagram cultivation technique that belonged to him alone. Zhuowen's arrival did not attract anyone's attention. Even the young man standing in the center of the arena did not open his eyes to look at Zhuowen. It said that the demonic essence demonic diagram is especially evil. Cultivators who cultivate this visualization diagram have extremely dense demonic nature in their souls, and their power is even more powerful. If Qin Ruebua really cultivates this visualization diagram to greater mastery, I feel that almost no one in the younger generation of Middle Ground will be his match. Not far from Zhuowen, there were cultivators discussing animatedly. They felt that this Qin Ruebua was an extremely terrifying and powerful genius who did not dare to enter the arena. Suddenly, Qin Ruebua, who was standing in the middle of the arena, suddenly opened his eyes, and a sharp cold light burst forth from his eyes. What? I've already waited on the arena for more than an hour. Since you call yourselves the geniuses of the younger generation, don't tell me you don't even have the guts to challenge me? Qin Ruebua spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but strangely, it was like a great bell that resounded in everyone's ears. Below the arena, the crowd was instantly stirred up and clamored with excitement. After a brief hubbub, a figure swept out from the crowd, leaped up, and landed on the ring. This was an extremely handsome young man. He was dressed in a long golden robe and his body was filled with a noble aura. I am Tang Si from the True Fire Tower. Qin Ruebua, you said that if I win the competition with you, can I really enter the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's Visualization Tower? Asked the youth with a burning gaze. It's actually Tang Si from the Primordial Fire Tower. He's the strongest genius of the younger generation in the Primordial Fire Tower. It said that his cultivation has already reached the early stage of the yin-yang transformation. His strength can't be underestimated. In the arena, many of the spectators immediately recognized the identity of the golden-robed young man, and there was an uproar. My words may be false, but this token can't be false. If you defeat me, this token is yours. Qin Ruebua took out a shiny silver token and waved it in front of Tang Si. Visualization Tower's door token. Tang Si's pupils constricted, but his heart burned even more fiercely. The so-called Visualization Tower's door token was actually the key to enter the Visualization Tower. As long as one had this door token, even if one wasn't a disciple of the Divine Firmament Soul sect, they would still have the qualifications to enter the Visualization Tower. In that case, please enlighten me. Tang Si took a deep breath and cupped his fists at Qin Ruebua. A powerful force began to surge in his body. He was determined to obtain this door token, so he planned to end the battle quickly and get rid of Qin Ruebua as soon as possible. Boom! Tang Si took a step forward. Instantly, the surrounding air rose at an unimaginable speed. The entire arena seemed to be in a furnace. Tang Si's entire body was burning with blazing flames. His figure flashed like lightning and appeared in front of Qin Ruebwa in the blink of an eye. Fire God's profundity. Tang Si grinned. Before he arrived, his fist arrived first. Blazing flames burned fiercely and carried an unparalleled fist aura as it blasted toward Qin Ruebwa's face. A faint smile appeared on Qin Ruebwa's lips. He stood motionless on the spot as if he didn't feel Tang Si's punch. Do you want to die? Tang Si narrowed his eyes, but his fist aura showed no signs of weakening. Instead, it became even stronger. The terrifying flames were like erupting lava as they poured down on Qin Ruebwa's body. Whoosh! The flames engulfed Qin Ruebwa, and he was completely engulfed by the flames. Thud! Tang Si landed on the ground and shook his head. I really don't know what you're thinking. You actually didn't dodge my attack. Don't blame me if you die. Ha! Tang Si, you think you can kill me with this level of strength? Wishful thinking. A sarcastic voice rang out. Tang Si's expression changed drastically as he suddenly raised his head and looked up. He saw Qin Ruebwa with a ferocious smile on his face as he fell down like a meteor, directly facing Tang Si. A strange black chi gushed out from between Qin Ruebwa's eyebrows and formed a black spear. He held it in his hand and stabbed it toward Tang Si's vitals. All the hair on Tang Si's body stood on end as a chill ran from his spine to his head. He felt the threat of death. Tang Si shouted. Blazing flames burst out from his body. The flames were golden, and when they surged out, they emitted a metallic sound. It was as if they were not flames, but some kind of metal. Block! Tang Si retreated as the golden flames formed a ring in front of him and spun rapidly. Clang! The black spear swept over in an instant and landed on the golden flames. A crisp metallic sound rang out. Tang Si's body trembled as he retreated even faster. Cherry-red blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Qin Ruebwa sneered. Holding the spear with his right hand, he took a mysterious step and stopped. His left hand suddenly struck the end of the spear. He only said the word break, and his body stopped in place. A terrifying gale swept up from his body, and a vast and terrifying power created a black spear from his left hand. Puchi! Tang Si's expression changed drastically as the golden flames in front of him shattered into countless fine powder. The black spear whistled through the air as it pierced through his shoulder blade. It carried him through the air and finally nailed him to a cliff behind him. Plop! The black spear slowly turned into a black chi and dissipated. Tang Si, who was hanging on the cliff, fell to the ground and spat out another mouthful of blood. He struggled to stand up. Qin Ruebwa, thank you for showing mercy. Tang Si's expression was ugly. He cupped his fists at Qin Ruebwa and then clutched the terrifying wound on his chest. In the crowd, 2 disciples of the true fire tower went up to support Tang Si. Chapter 38-54. Ah! Suddenly, Tang Si screamed and raised his head. Everyone looked over and was horrified to find that Tang Si was bleeding from his 7 orifices and his entire body was twitching. In the end, Tang Si exploded into a cloud of blood mist. In this cloud of blood mist, a very inconspicuous black chi surged out and swept into the arena, entering Qin Ruebwa's body. As for the 2 primordial fire tower disciples who were supporting Tang Si, they did not even have the chance to scream before they were turned into ashes by the explosion. Below the arena, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. After Tang Si self-exploded, the black chi that surged out of his body was not noticed by others, but he did. Is this the power of the demonic chi demonic diagram? Zhuowen muttered in a low voice as his eyes shone brightly. It had to be said that the demonic chi demonic diagram was indeed very powerful. It was much more powerful than the visualization diagram that he cultivated. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that Qin Ruibua's strength was actually around the early stage of the yin-yang change realm and was not much stronger than Tang Si. However, Qin Ruibua's strength lay in the fact that his spirit had become extremely powerful and terrifying under the refinement of the demonic qi demonic diagram. If one could not resist the evil corrosion in Qin Ruibua's spirit, even if one was stronger than Qin Ruibua, they would probably be defeated by him. Only when one's spirit was on par with Qin Ruibua would one be qualified to fight him head-on. Following that, many cultivators below the arena went up to challenge him. Unfortunately, they all returned empty-handed. Moreover, the young talents who were defeated by Qin Ruibua all died in the arena in the end. Below the arena, everyone was horrified. They felt that Qin Ruibua was too evil. He set up the arena and said that it was a spar, but after the battle, he actually went for the kill. Originally, many cultivators who were eager to give it a try gave up. They were not confident that they could survive under Qin Ruibua's hands. Naturally, they would not die for nothing. Qin Ruibua glanced around and saw that no one came up. A mocking smile appeared on his face. Is there no one else in the Central Plains? You all claim to be geniuses of the younger generation, but you don't even dare to challenge me. What right do you have to call yourself geniuses? Qin Ruibua mocked. Everyone below the arena looked at Qin Ruibua angrily. This guy actually started a group mockery mode and made fun of all of them. Qin Ruibua, let me test you. Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice came from below the arena. Then, the crowd slowly parted to form a path, and a woman wearing a veil slowly walked over. This woman had a slender figure, and the exposed part of her skin was even more delicate and fair, as white and flawless as snow. She is Yang Yanyu of the Eight Gods Shan sect. I didn't expect her to come as well. Among the younger generation of the Central State, she can be ranked in the top 3 geniuses. Yang Yanyu has been famous for a long time and has a very high prestige among the younger generation. But this Qin Ruibua has just appeared out of nowhere. One has been famous for a long time, and the other has risen against the trend. I wonder who will be stronger. 2. Zhuowen's gaze also landed on Yang Yanyu. His gaze was solemn. In his divine sense, Yang Yanyu's cultivation was about the same as Tang Si and Qin Ruibua. But the aura she exuded gave him a sense of danger. Without a doubt, this Yang Yanyu was a much stronger powerhouse than Tang Si. Qin Ruibua also finally noticed Yang Yanyu. He licked his lips and revealed a cold smile as he said, I really didn't expect that even senior apprentice Sister Yang came too. Yang Yanyu landed on the arena leisurely and said with a light smile, it just so happens that I'm very interested in the visualization tower, so I came over to give it a try. I hope that junior apprentice brother Qin can show mercy. Qin Ruibua grinned and said, Senior apprentice Sister Yang, everything is negotiable. With senior apprentice Sister Yang's identity and status, after I defeat you, I won't kill you. Instead, I'll take good care of you. Yang Yanyu's expression changed slightly, and she shouted coldly, you're really impudent. As soon as Yang Yanyu said these words, her figure vanished on the spot like a ghost. On the arena, only a white shadow flashed past. Qin Ruibua, who stood at the center of the arena, gave a muffled groan and retreated repeatedly, all the way until he retreated to the edge of the arena. The white shadow slowly landed at the center of the arena. Yang Yanyu looked at Qin Ruibua indifferently and said, Junior apprentice brother Qin, you're a rising star. Your natural talent is indeed not bad. But this doesn't mean that you have the qualifications to be on equal footing with me. You better change the way you speak to me. Otherwise, I might not be able to control the strength of my attacks. Qin Ruibua wiped away the bloodstains at the corners of his mouth, but he laughed loudly and said, Senior apprentice Sister Yang, you're really gentle. You hit me so comfortably. Next, it's my turn to make you feel comfortable. Yang Yanyu's beautiful eyes were ghastly cold, and she shouted coldly, you're simply impudent. Don't blame me for being merciless. As she spoke, Yang Yanyu attacked again. Her speed was even faster than before. The crowd couldn't even see Yang Yanyu's figure. They only saw an illusory white shadow. Qin Ruebwa sneered. A lot of black mist burst out from between his eyebrows and covered his entire body, turning into an incomparably hard black armor. Only his two eyes were left outside. Bang! Yang Yanyu's attacks came one after another, bombarding Qin Ruebwa's body. But this time, Qin Ruebwa was as still as a mountain. The black armor around him kept squirming, resisting Yang Yanyu's attacks. Bang, bang, bang. Yang Yanyu's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Qin Ruebwa was hit dozens of times. But every attack was blocked by the black armor around Qin Ruebwa's body. I've got you. When Yang Yanyu attacked again, Qin Ruebwa saw the opportunity and grabbed one of Yang Yanyu's arms. Yang Yanyu's pretty face changed slightly. She burst out with all the strength in her body, trying to break free from Qin Ruebwa's restraint. Unfortunately, ever since Qin Ruebwa's body was covered with this strange armor, he was extremely resistant to attacks. Yang Yanyu's attacks could only make Qin Ruebwa let out a muffled groan and didn't cause any serious injuries. Qin Ruebwa pulled Yang Yanyu with his right hand and formed a fist with his left hand, fiercely punching toward Yang Yanyu's chest and abdomen. Yang Yanyu gritted her teeth. She knew that she could only fight Qin Ruebwa head-on now. Therefore, Yang Yanyu's right hand formed a palm and spewed out white energy to meet Qin Ruebwa's attack. Boom! The two fists collided, and there was an explosive sound. Yang Yanyu's beautiful eyes changed drastically. She suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Sweat appeared on her white forehead, and there was a look of pain in her eyes. Qin Ruebwa also let out a muffled groan, but he didn't give up. He laughed loudly and punched at Yang Yanyu, almost as if he didn't care about his life. Yang Yanyu was helpless. She could only passively receive Qin Ruebwa's terrifying punches. Every time she blocked them, her injuries would become more serious. Although Qin Ruebwa also suffered a lot of injuries, the black armor around his body was too strange. It helped him offset most of the attacks. In this battle of attrition, Qin Ruebwa undoubtedly had the upper hand. Chapter 38-55. Yang Yanyu stood up with difficulty. Her veil and the clothes on her chest were already dyed bright red. That was her blood. Junior apprentice brother Qin is indeed mighty and unstoppable. Yanyu concedes defeat. Yang Yanyu cupped her fists at Qin Ruebwa and left with the help of two powerhouses from the Eight Gods Shan sect. A trace of ferocity flashed across Qin Ruebwa's eyes, but he was quite shocked in his heart. The divine soul that he cultivated from the demonic vitality demonic diagram carried a terrifying demonic chi. Generally, cultivators who were eroded by this demonic chi could easily self-explode and die. Logically speaking, Yang Yanyu had suffered so many attacks from him. The demonic chi had already entered her body seriously, but she was not affected much. It seemed that the top geniuses of the central state could not be underestimated. Qin Ruebwa knew that he could defeat Yang Yanyu, but he might not be able to kill her. Who else wants to come up? Demonic chi surged around Qin Ruebwa, forcibly suppressing the injuries in his body. His gaze swept across the numerous cultivators below the ring coldly. Qin Ruebwa was very proud. In his eyes, Yang Yanyu should be the strongest genius among these people. Even such a powerful genius was defeated in his hands. The other opponents were all clay chickens and pottery dogs to him. Even if he continued to fight with injuries, no one could shake him. Sure enough, once he said this, the people below the ring were silent like cicadas in winter. No one answered. Qin Ruebwa revealed a disdainful smile at the corners of his mouth. He knew that everyone below the ring was already scared out of their wits. No one would come up to challenge again. In the battle just now, you're already injured. If you continue to fight, can you bear it? Suddenly, below the ring, a voice without ripples sounded out and spread up and down the entire ring. As soon as this remark came out, everyone's gaze involuntarily gathered on a young man who was seated at the back. Qin Ruibua's gaze turned slightly serious. He looked at that young man coldly and said proudly, "Other than a genius like Yang Yanyu, you people really don't need me to use my full strength. Whether I'm injured or not has no effect on the result of the battle at all." Below the ring, everyone glared at him angrily. Qin Ruibua's contemptuous attitude made them very displeased. "Good. Since that's the case, then I'll challenge you." The youth's eyes were burning as he strode towards the ring. Finally, he leapt onto the edge of the ring. His back was straight as he calmly looked at Qin Ruibua. Qin Ruibua sized up the youth from head to toe. Suddenly, he laughed loudly and said, "One must know one's limits. A hollow god transformation stage ant like you dares to compete with me? Get out of my sight." Qin Ruibua's gaze grew even more disdainful. Although he was bloodthirsty, he had no interest in fighting against cultivators whose cultivation bases were so much lower than his. In fact, he couldn't even be bothered to attack. Is there something wrong with this guy's head? A middle-stage void god transformation cultivator actually dared to challenge Qin Ruibua. Didn't he see that Qin Ruibua had defeated a yin-yang transformation genius like Yang Yanyu? He actually dares to challenge Qin Ruibua. Humph. He's obviously looking to die. Even with my peak 5 phases transformation, I wouldn't dare to fight with Qin Ruibua. This bastard. Below the arena, everyone shook their heads, feeling that this young man was really courting death. This young man was none other than Zhuowen, who had changed his appearance. Qin Ruibua was indeed powerful. However, Zhuowen had already discovered Qin Ruibua's weakness after watching several matches. Qin Ruibua's strength was actually very average. He was not even as strong as an early-stage yin-yang transformation cultivator. At most, he was at the peak of the 5 elements transformation stage. Qin Ruibua's main reliance was his divine soul. After cultivating the demonic qi transform demon diagram, Qin Ruibua's divine soul carried a terrifying demonic nature. Many cultivators could easily be affected by his divine soul, causing their strength to drop by a large margin. Take the battle between Yang Yanyu and Qin Ruibua as an example. If one looked at it superficially, Yang Yanyu was being suppressed. However, if one looked closely, it was actually Yang Yanyu who was getting weaker and weaker as she fought with Qin Ruibua. In the end, Qin Ruibua found a flaw and defeated her. As long as one could resist the demonic nature of Qin Ruibua's soul, Qin Ruibua's strength was only a so-so. Zhuowen was the least afraid of soul attacks. This was because his soul had merged with the primordial stone. Soul attacks had no effect on him at all. Get out. I think you're afraid, aren't you? Afraid that you'll be defeated by someone with a lower cultivation level and become the laughingstock of the central state. Zhuowen said sarcastically. Qin Ruibua's face suddenly became unfriendly. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, "You're really bold. How dare you provoke me?" The corners of Zhuowen's mouth held a trace of a smile, and he didn't say anything else, but silently looked at Qin Ruibua. "If that's the case, I'll kill you in one move, you ant." Qin Ruibua was infuriated by Zhuowen. Killing intent burst out from his eyes. Then, he stomped his right foot, and a powerful aura surged out and poured down. It was as if the gravity in the surroundings had increased explosively. The entire arena shook violently. Bang! There was a thunderous explosion. Qin Ruibua turned into an illusory shadow and appeared in front of Zhuowen in the blink of an eye. Qin Ruibua did not take Zhuowen seriously at all. Therefore, he did not even release the power of his soul. He only attacked Zhuowen with his cultivation level. In his opinion, even if he did not use the power of the demonic energy demonic diagram, this ant in the empty god transformation stage was far from his match. Zhuowen laughed. Qin Ruebwa had suffered serious internal injuries in the battle with Yang Yanyu. His strength had been greatly reduced. Now, he was still so arrogant in front of him. He was simply courting death. Zhuowen did not hold back. He stomped his right foot forward and a terrifying power surged from the bottom of his foot. Then, empty gods appeared one after another around his body. As for his strength, it was also increasing by the hundreds and thousands. The moment the ninth empty god appeared, countless cracks appeared in the arena before it exploded with a loud bang. At that moment, Qin Ruebwa had already arrived in front of Zhuowen. His right fist came as expected, but his face was full of astonishment. Boom! Zhuowen punched out with all the strength he had accumulated in his life, pouring out all of it. Qin Ruebwa's pupils shrank to the extreme. His strength was completely suppressed. Then, an even stronger power poured into his body from his right fist. He tried his best to resist this power. However, he soon realized that his broken god power could not withstand this power. This power was of a very high level. It completely suppressed his broken god power. Even if he used the yin-yang power that was unique to the yin-yang transformation, he was still suppressed. He was really shocked. What kind of power was in this guy's body? Why was it so strange? Crack! The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. Then, Qin Ruebwa could only watch as his right arm was crushed, and Zhuowen's unparalleled fist landed on his chest. Pfft! Qin Ruebwa spat out a mouthful of blood. He flew out in a sorry state and landed heavily in the ruins of the arena. Chapter 38-56. Below the arena, everyone was dumbfounded as they stared blankly at the scene. None of them had expected that the outcome of this arena battle would actually be like this. Qin Ruebwa, who was originally incomparably powerful, was defeated by this empty god transformation newbie with a single punch. Moreover, they also realized that this newcomer had 9 virtual gods. This was simply a shocking news. What's wrong with this newbie? He actually has 9 empty gods. Is he trying to defy the heavens? This is also the first time I've seen a Nihility god transformation expert with 9 Nihility gods. However, this Nihility god transformation newbie is really strong. Even if Qin Ruebwa didn't use his divine soul, he's still at the yin-yang transformation stage. In such a head-on clash, Qin Ruebwa lost in one move. This is unbelievable. Around the arena, there was a flurry of discussion as they looked at Zhuowen in amazement. They were all guessing which famous sect this person came from. On the steps in front of the mountain gate, the 2 old men's faces turned ugly when they saw that Qin Ruebwa was defeated in one move. At the same time, they were also shocked by the 9 empty gods that Zhuowen released. After all, they were experts of the older generation and had seen many things. They knew what 9 empty gods meant. The 2 old men exchanged glances and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Bang! Suddenly, in the ruins of the arena, sand and stones flew and exploded. Qin Ruebwa was like an angry beast as he rushed out of the ruins. His eyes were red as he stared at Zhuowen. His right hand was completely pulverized, leaving only his broken upper arm. It was still hanging on his shoulder, and blood dripped down. It sounded particularly horrifying. However, Qin Ruebwa was at the yin-yang transformation after all. His self-healing ability was naturally not weak. At this moment, his broken arm was slowly recovering. A blazing black aura surged from between Qin Ruebwa's eyebrows. It rolled over and surrounded his body, looking very ferocious and terrifying. Qin Ruebwa's killing intent had reached an extremely terrifying level. This time, he had lost a lot of face. He was actually defeated by an empty god transformation cultivator. This time, he would really become the laughingstock of Middle State. If he did not kill this kid, he would not be able to vent his anger. Whoosh! The two old men who were originally standing on the steps leaped down from the arena and blocked Qin Ruebwa, who was about to make a move. Elders, what is the meaning of this? One of the tall and thin old men said in a low voice, Ruebwa, you've lost this time. If you still make a move, wouldn't that be breaking the rules? Qin Ruebwa simply couldn't control the anger in his heart. He growled, I won't allow myself to be defeated by an ant. I must take revenge. The tall and skinny old man sighed and sent a message to Qin Ruebwa. Qin Ruebwa, who was originally furious, suddenly revealed a look of surprise. Then, he took another look at Zhuowen and actually silently withdrew his aura. You've won this time. This is the door plate of the visualization tower. Take it. Qin Ruebwa took out the token and tossed it to Zhuowen before leaving the arena. He had been defeated by someone of a higher cultivation level than him. It was simply too humiliating. How could he continue to stay here? Zhuowen received the token and looked at Qin Ruebwa's departing figure with some bafflement. Just now, this fellow still had an aggressive appearance. He even thought that he still wanted to fight with Qin Ruebwa. However, those two elders sent a few voice transmissions to him. Qin Ruebwa's anger was suppressed and he decisively admitted defeat. Zhuowen was rather curious about what exactly that elder said to Qin Ruebwa. This young master is really skilled. I still haven't asked for young master's great name. The tall and skinny old man walked up and said to Zhuowen rather enthusiastically. Zhuowen actually didn't quite understand what was going on. He just nodded and replied, I'm called Dao Wen. Young master, you shouldn't be from the central continent, right? The tall and skinny old man asked with a grin. Zhuowen's gaze immediately revealed a vigilant look. He thought for a moment and said, I'm indeed not from the central continent. But senior, why are you asking this? To be more precise, Zhuowen wasn't from the 100 territories outside the world. He was a being from the lower dimensions that had ascended. After the tall and skinny old man heard that Zhuowen wasn't from the central continent, his gaze flickered with an indescribable light, and the enthusiasm on his face grew even denser. I was rash. Since Brother Dao Wen has already won the combat ring, then you can enter the visualization tower now. The tall and skinny old man chuckled. Zhuowen cupped his fists and directly leaped into the visualization tower in midair. The door to the visualization tower was arched, and there was a groove at the center of the door. The shape of this groove just happened to be exactly the same as the command token in his hand. Zhuowen placed the command token into the groove. Instantly, the arched door emitted cracking sounds, and then it opened towards both sides. At the instant Zhuowen stepped foot into the visualization tower, he heard the voice of the tall and skinny old man by his ears. Brother Dao Wen, the visualization tower is only open for 10 days. Therefore, if you want to look at the visualization diagram, you only have 10 days. I suggest you go directly to the 3rd floor. The strongest visualization diagram of the Divine Firmament Soul sect is placed there. The strongest visualization diagram of the Divine Firmament Soul sect, the Demonic Essence Demonic Diagram, is also on the 3rd floor. Zhuowen was stunned, and his gaze became rather strange. This tall and skinny old man was a little too enthusiastic towards him. He had entered the visualization diagram to look at their sect's manuals, and he was actually so kind as to remind him. There was something wrong with this scene. However, Zhuowen didn't mind. His gaze landed on the bookshelves piled up in the visualization tower. The manuals on these bookshelves were all kinds of visualization diagrams. Zhuowen casually walked to the side of a nearby bookshelf and casually picked up a manual. This manual was called the Lotus Flower Visualization Diagram. Its level wasn't high, and it was of the same level as the Green Lotus Visualization Diagram that Zhuowen had cultivated back then. However, Zhuowen quickly finished reading this visualization diagram and then continued to deduce it in his mind. In just 15 minutes, he had already comprehended this lotus flower visualization diagram. Moreover, he used the special energy of the Great Word Stone to combine the ancient sword visualization diagram and the green lotus visualization diagram, fusing them together to create a new visualization diagram. Zhuowen browsed through the manuals one by one and spent 2 days to finish reading all the visualization diagrams on the first floor of the visualization tower. Moreover, he used the ability of the Great Word Stone to finally fuse these visualization diagrams together and create a new visualization diagram. Zhuowen named this visualization diagram the Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram. The Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram was the same as the Primordial Chaos Movement Technique and the Primordial Chaos Soldier Art. They all had the potential to be fused. They could be continuously upgraded by fusing with other visualization diagrams. Zhuowen spent 3 days to finish looking through all the visualization diagrams on the second level. He also integrated all of these visualization diagrams into the Primordial Visualization Diagram. Meanwhile, the Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram had also successfully advanced to the 6th level. Now, as long as he cultivated the Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram, his spirit would be able to break through and smoothly reach the heaven-crushing 6th transformation stage. When Zhuowen arrived at the 3rd floor, he discovered that there were only 2 visualization diagrams on the 3rd floor. One was the Demonic Essence Demonic Diagram, and the other was the Ultimate Dark Heaven Diagram. Chapter 3857. The portrait in the Imperial Shen-Tian diagram was very simple. On the top half of the portrait was an arc that resembled the sky. Under the sky, a blazing yellow light surged. This light seemed to be alive as it kept flashing. It was as if it was going to break through the arc in the sky and completely pierce through it. The only pity was that the Imperial Shen-Tian diagram was not complete. 1/3 of the Imperial Shen-Tian diagram was missing. Zhuowen did not know what the missing part of the diagram was. On the other hand, the reason Zhuowen had paid attention to this visualization diagram with a single glance was because he'd sensed a vast and surging impact from it as soon as he laid eyes on it. This impact was far greater than the demonic qi demonic diagram. Without a doubt, this Imperial Shen-Tian diagram's grade should be higher than the demonic qi demonic diagram. However, the Imperial Shen-Tian diagram was missing a part, so its value might be similar to the demonic qi demonic diagram. Zhuowen silently studied the Imperial Shen-Tian diagram before his gaze finally landed on the demonic qi demonic diagram. The demonic qi demonic diagram's image could be said to be extremely evil. It was a demon whose entire body was covered in black fog. This demon was very tall, and its body was surging with demonic aura. It was impossible to see its face clearly. The only eye-catching thing should be its demonic eyes that even the demonic aura could not hide. This pair of demonic eyes had 9 layers of pupils. Upon closer inspection, it seemed as if these pupils were rotating together. It was easy to be dazzled if one looked at it for too long. Zhuowen's gaze was serious. He finally knew why the Divine Firmament Soul sect's previous sect masters had been unable to cultivate this visualization diagram to perfection. The main reason was that this visualization diagram was simply too evil. If one's mind was slightly distracted while cultivating this diagram, it was very easy to be bewitched by this pair of eyes and suffer qi deviation. Zhuowen guessed that there should be many powerful cultivators in the Divine Firmament Soul sect who had suffered qi deviation after cultivating this visualization diagram, greatly damaging their vitality. Zhuowen had also almost been bewitched by this pair of demonic eyes. Fortunately, his mind and soul were extraordinary. Thinking of this, Zhuowen felt a trace of admiration for Qin Ruebua. This person was really talented to be able to cultivate the demonic vitality demonic diagram to great accomplishment in such a short time. Zhuowen glanced at the demonify diagram and the highest Shen-Tian diagram. Although his comprehension ability had been improved by the highest word stone, it had indeed reached a level that ordinary people could not reach. However, he only had 7 days left in this visualization diagram, and the demonic energy transmutation diagram and the imperial Shantian diagram were both extremely profound visualization diagrams. He estimated that with his comprehension ability, he would only need 5 days to fully comprehend the demonic vitality demonic diagram. It would take him at least 6 days to comprehend the imperial Shantian diagram. After all, the imperial Shantian diagram was of a higher level than the demonic vitality demonic diagram. Furthermore, it was incomplete, so it was naturally more time-consuming. Therefore, he could only choose one of the 2 visualization diagrams. Zhuowen naturally chose the higher-level imperial Shantian diagram. Although the diagram was incomplete, he had the primordial stone. He could use the primordial stone to deduce the incomplete parts of the diagram and completely perfect it. Once the imperial Shantian diagram was completed, its level would probably far surpass the demonic energy transmutation diagram. It would be a more valuable visualization diagram to cultivate. Zhuowen was a decisive person. Therefore, after making this decision, he immediately sat cross-legged in front of the imperial Shantian diagram. He stared at the diagram on it and focused on comprehending it. The highest word stone in his soul surged with a mysterious and distant purple light as Zhuowen comprehended the diagram. It was helping him to comprehend the imperial Shantian diagram. Time passed day by day. It was the 9th day since Zhuowen entered the visualization tower. Zhuowen was still sitting in front of the imperial Shantian diagram. A dim yellow light flickered between his eyebrows. All of a sudden, he opened his eyes. A light that couldn't be looked at directly flashed across his eyes. The light on his forehead suddenly bloomed and turned into countless yellow light beams. These beams of light swept upward and finally condensed into a yellow pillar of light. It seemed like it was going to soar into the sky and pierce through the dome of heaven. The moment this pillar of light formed, the yellow color immediately turned into a faint purple color. Then, gold surged within the faint purple color. Finally, the purple and gold colors merged together perfectly. Zhuowen's mind moved. The purple-gold pillar of light immediately dissipated into countless light spots and merged into the depths of Zhuowen's eyebrows. Zhuowen slowly stood up. His eyes were filled with excitement. He had completely comprehended the imperial Shantian diagram on the 8th day. Of course, he had only comprehended the incomplete diagram of the imperial Shantian diagram. As for the complete imperial Shantian diagram, it was not very likely that he could fully comprehend it. On the 9th day, he used the Tai word stone to completely merge the imperial Shantian diagram with the primordial meditation diagram. Although Zhuowen did not know the exact grade of the imperial Shantian diagram, he could feel that the primordial meditation diagram had undergone some kind of transformation after it merged with the imperial Shantian diagram. He was sure that the primordial meditation diagram was of a higher grade than the demonic energy demonic diagram. If he could completely deduce and perfect the imperial Shantian diagram, the primordial meditation diagram's power would become very terrifying. It would far surpass the demonic energy demonic diagram. Of course, the imperial Shantian diagram's grade was too high. If he were to use the Tai word stone to deduce and perfect it, it would probably take a very long time. However, Zhuowen was not in a hurry. The primordial meditation diagram had already given him enough surprises. Now that his spirit was cultivating, he did not have to worry at all in the heaven-crushing stage. The primordial meditation diagram could at least allow his spirit to cultivate to the heaven-crushing 9 transformations. At least, before his spirit reached the heaven-crushing 9 transformations, he did not have to search for the diagram anymore. There is still a day left in this visualization tower. I might as well start cultivating the primordial meditation diagram. Zhuowen muttered to himself. Aside from the demonic energy demonic diagram, Zhuowen had basically seen all of the diagrams here and merged them into the primordial meditation diagram. It was obviously not very possible for him to completely comprehend the demonic energy demonic diagram in a day. Therefore, Zhuowen did not plan to comprehend the demonic energy demonic diagram anymore. It was better to cultivate the primordial meditation diagram. His spirit had already reached the peak of the heaven-crushing 5 transformations and was on the verge of breaking through at any time. However, he had been suffering from the lack of higher-grade diagrams before, which was why he had stagnated. Chapter 38-58. The person in the lead was an old man with a sage-like demeanor. He wore a green Taoist robe that fluttered even though there was no wind, giving off the feeling of a banished immortal. This person was the Divine Firmament Soul sect master, He Yangshu. His cultivation was at the early stage of the Divine Domain Transformation stage, an expert on the same level as Sikong Chiyu. The young man standing behind He Yangshu was Qin Ruebua, who had lost to Zhuowen. The other 2 old men were the 2 elders of the Divine Firmament Soul sect who had been standing in front of the mountain gate since the beginning. 5th elder, 6th elder. Are you sure that this kid has 9 void spirit realm experts? The sage-like old man looked at the visualization tower floating in the air. His eyes narrowed as he spoke somewhat solemnly. Sect master, I can confirm this matter. This kid's cultivation is indeed at the Void God transformation stage, but the strength he displayed is not inferior to mine at all. Especially when he erupted with 9 Void Spirit Realm experts, his strength is probably above mine. If not for my carelessness, no matter how strong he is, he wouldn't be a match for me. Qin Ruebua cupped his fists towards He Yangshu, his eyes filled with unwillingness. He had set up the arena in high spirits and challenged the many young geniuses of the middle ground. Even a famous genius like Yang Yanyu had been defeated by him. But what he didn't expect was that he would lose to a mere void god transformation stage ant. This kind of battle record would probably make him the greatest laughing stock of the middle ground in the future. At that time, if the 5th elder had not told him what he guessed, he might have immediately killed this ant. 9 Void Spirit Realm experts. If I'm not wrong, in the Li Yuan main region, only a descendant of a family can cultivate multiple Void Spirit Realm experts at the Void God Transformation stage and obtain strength that far surpasses Void God Transformation stage cultivators of the same level. He Yangshu's gaze became solemn as he muttered. Sect master, what family is it that makes you so afraid? Qin Ruebua asked doubtfully. At that time, the 5th elder had only agreed to his voice transmission. He had only said that this person's background was very unusual and that he couldn't casually attack him at the moment. Otherwise, it might cause great trouble. If not for the 5th elder's warning, he would have been so angry that he lost his mind. It's one of the 3 devil clans, the Heavenly Devil Clan. The bloodline of the Heavenly Devil Clan is very special. It comes from the ancient Devil Clan. Their bloodline is much stronger than ours. It is precisely because of the strength of their bloodline that the 3 devil clans are generally much stronger than human cultivators. Only some of the top human geniuses are comparable to the geniuses of the 3 devil clans. As for the descendants of the Heavenly Demon Clan, their most obvious characteristic is that when they reach the empty god rank, they will have at least 2 empty gods. The stronger ones might even have 7 or 8. This person is only at the empty god transformation stage, but he has 9 empty gods. He must be from the Heavenly Demon Clan, and he is no ordinary genius. He Yangshu took a deep breath and said in a low voice. 3 devil clans? Qin Ruebua looked puzzled. He knew a little about the situation in the Liyuan Master District. He knew that the strongest sect in the Liyuan Master District was the 4 Shenzhen. That was a true superpower. However, this was the first time he had heard of the 3 Devils clan. It shouldn't be a powerful force. He Yangshu glanced at Qin Ruebua from the corner of his eyes. He could see that Qin Ruebwa did not think much of it. Ruebwa, you're still too young. It's normal that you haven't heard of the Three Devils clan. I can tell you clearly that the Three Devils clan is no weaker than the Four Shenzhen. The experts of the Three Devils clan are even stronger than the Four Shenzhen. He Yangshu reminded him. What? So strong? Then why haven't I heard anything about the Three Devils clan? Qin Ruebwa was shocked. That's because the Three Devils clan is not human. In the 100 outer regions, the human race is the mainstream. No matter how strong the Three Devils clan is, can they fight against the entire human race in the Liyuan Master District? As the saying goes, those who are not of our race must be killed. The Three Devils clan naturally understands this, so they have been very low-key in the Liyuan Master District. All this time, they have been living peacefully with the other human forces in the Liyuan Master District. This is also why you haven't heard of the Three Devils clan, He Yangshu explained patiently. Only then did Qin Ruebwa reveal a relieved expression. He did not expect the three demon clans to be so powerful. If that fellow was really from the three demon clans and something happened to him, the Divine Firmament Soul sect would not be able to bear the consequences. Their Divine Firmament Soul sect was one of the top 10 sects in Middle Ground, but in the Liyuan Master District, it could only be considered below average. It could not be compared to the Three Devils clan, which was comparable to the Four Shenzhen. Oh! He Yangshu suddenly raised his head and looked at the visualization tower in the sky with a surprised expression. Sect Master, what's wrong? The fifth elder and sixth elder saw He Yangshu's strange expression and asked in confusion. Look! He Yangshu pointed at the visualization tower. The two elders and Qin Ruebwa's group looked in the direction He Yangshu had pointed. To their surprise, they discovered that the visualization tower was trembling violently. Then, a terrifying violet gold torrent surged out of the visualization tower and rushed into the sky. This! What a powerful divine spirit! That youth called Dao Wen's divine spirit has already broken through. The fifth elder and sixth elder were shocked as they looked at the purple gold torrent in disbelief. Such a large purple gold torrent was formed by the divine spirit. It was so huge that it was simply inconceivable. Could it be that his divine spirit has reached the heaven-crushing seventh transformation? Qin Ruebwa was the most surprised, and the unwillingness in his eyes gradually faded. If Shuowen's divine spirit was really so powerful, even if he used the demonic Qi demonic diagram's divine spirit, it would be far inferior to this divine spirit. He knew that even if he competed with this youth again, he would still not be this youth's match if he did not underestimate his opponent. No. His divine spirit has just broken through to the heaven-crushing sixth transformation, but his divine spirit is too powerful. It far surpasses the divine spirit of an ordinary heaven-crushing sixth transformation cultivator. As expected of the Three Devils clan's prodigy. He has only been in the visualization tower for 10 days, and he can actually achieve enlightenment and break through to the heaven-crushing sixth transformation. He Yangshu's eyes revealed a trace of admiration as he muttered in a low voice. Qin Ruebwa, on the other hand, was really shocked. Such powerful divine spirit, and he had actually just broken through to the divine spirit's sixth transformation. Could this be a joke? His divine spirit had already reached the peak of the heaven-crushing sixth transformation, but compared to this divine spirit torrent, it was still far inferior. He had thought that Dao Wen's divine spirit had broken through to the heaven-crushing seventh transformation. Of course, he naturally would not doubt He Yangshu's judgment. After all, the latter was the Divine Firmament Soul sect's strongest cultivator, and his judgment was much more experienced than his. This time, Qin Ruebwa could be considered to have wholeheartedly accepted his loss. Qin Ruebwa naturally felt that he was no match for the Three Devils clan's prodigy. Thus, losing to such a prodigy was not considered embarrassing. The purple gold torrent gradually extinguished and finally disappeared. Then, the doors of the visualization tower slowly opened, and a slender figure walked out from within. Let's go. Let's go pay our respects to this young master. Chapter 38-59. Zhuowen walked out of the visualization tower's door, his eyes flashing with excitement. He didn't expect that his soul would actually break through so quickly, only using less than half a day. He knew that all of this was thanks to the primordial chaos visualization diagram. This was a visualization diagram that he had created by using the primordial chaos stone and fusing various visualization diagrams. It was the most suitable visualization diagram for him. He only needed to cultivate, and the speed of his breakthrough was so fast that even he was a little surprised. Although he still had half a day in the visualization tower, Zhuowen didn't stay any longer. Inside the visualization tower, apart from the demonic origin transmutation diagram, Zhuowen had basically comprehended most of the visualization diagrams. There was no use in staying any longer. Zhuowen suddenly noticed that 4 figures were flying over from below the visualization tower. The person in the lead was an old man in green robes with a sage-like demeanor. The invisible aura emitted by this old man was extremely vast, causing Zhuowen's pupils to involuntarily constrict as he looked at this old man with fear. If Zhuowen wasn't wrong, this old man's aura was very powerful, not inferior to Sikong Qiyu at all. This old man should also be an early-stage God domain transformation expert, very likely the Divine Firmament Soul sect master. As for the 3 people behind the old man, Zhuowen wasn't unfamiliar with them. They were Qin Ruebua and the 2 Divine Firmament Soul sect elders presiding over the arena. Zhuowen also noticed in surprise that Qin Ruebua, who originally had an unfriendly expression towards him, didn't have any enmity towards him at this moment. Instead, he discovered that Qin Ruebua's gaze was filled with passion and admiration. This made Zhuowen somewhat confused. He remembered that after Qin Ruebua was persuaded by the 2 elders, his gaze was still very terrifying when he looked at him, as if he wanted nothing more than to eat him. Now that they hadn't seen each other for 10 days, wasn't this change a little too big? Young friend Daowen, I'm the Divine Firmament Soul sect master, He Yangshu. I wonder what you think of our Divine Firmament Soul sect's visualization tower. He Yangshu revealed a warm smile. Zhuowen nodded inwardly. It seemed that his guess was right. This green-robed old man was indeed the Divine Firmament Soul sect master. However, this was the first time they were meeting, right? Why was he so kind and smiling? Moreover, Zhuowen didn't think that a mere junior like him would be able to make the Divine Firmament Soul sect master come personally to meet him. Could it be because I defeated Qin Ruebua, so he wanted to meet him? But He Yangshu's attitude towards him really made Zhuowen somewhat at a loss. Also, the attitude of Qin Ruebua and the other 2 who followed He Yangshu was a little too gentle. I beat up the strongest prodigy of your Divine Firmament Soul sect and made him lose face in front of everyone. Don't you hold a grudge against me at all? This was clearly not playing by the rules. Zhuowen complained in his heart, but he didn't dare to be negligent in front of He Yangshu. He cupped his fists and said, the Divine Firmament Soul sect is indeed the #1 sect in middle ground for cultivating the soul. The manuals and the visualization tower have benefited me greatly. The smile on He Yangshu's face became even more warm. It's good that you're satisfied with the visualization tower. Are you interested in coming to our Divine Firmament Soul sect as a guest? Let me do my duty as a host. Zhuowen was stunned. He carefully sized up He Yangshu. He could tell that the latter's words didn't seem to be false. He really wanted to invite him to the Divine Firmament Soul sect as a guest. Zhuowen hesitated for a moment before nodding. Since sect master he is so kind, I can't refuse. Zhuowen thought for a moment. Hongwu Shengzhen's entrance trial was nearing. This Divine Firmament Soul sect was one of the top 10 factions in middle ground. They probably had a more detailed understanding of Hongwu Shengzhen's entrance trial. Since He Yangshu invited him as a guest, perhaps he could ask He Yangshu about Hongwu Shengzhen. Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, He Yangshu's smile became even brighter. Under He Yangshu's lead, the 5 of them entered the Divine Firmament Soul sect and walked toward the main palace in the mountain range. During this time, Qin Ruebwa intentionally or unintentionally chatted with Zhuowen. The former even occasionally raised some questions about the cultivation of the soul. Zhuowen was very surprised by Qin Ruebwa's warm attitude. This youth, who had been full of evil in the beginning, actually had such a side to him. Zhuowen was not used to it. However, Zhuowen answered all of Qin Ruebwa's questions about the soul. Zhuowen's soul was improved on the foundation of the primordial stone, so his comprehension was very high. His understanding of the soul was something that even a divine domain transformation expert like He Yangshu might not be able to compare with. Naturally, Zhuowen had no difficulty answering Qin Ruebwa's questions. When Qin Ruebwa saw that Zhuowen was able to answer so fluently, and that every answer was able to enlighten him, he felt even more admiration for Zhuowen. It seemed that the sect master was right. This person was definitely a genius of the heavenly demon clan. Only a genius from a super powerful force could have such astonishing comprehension ability and such a deep understanding of the soul. While Zhuowen and Qin Ruebwa were asking and answering questions, He Yangshu was listening at the side. However, the more he listened, the more shocked he became. He could easily answer Qin Ruebwa's questions, but he was shocked that Zhuowen's answers were not the same as his. However, after careful consideration, He Yangshu discovered that Zhuowen's answer was even more brilliant than the one he had thought of. He Yangshu looked deeply at Zhuowen. He was now even more certain that this Daowen was definitely a genius of the heavenly demon clan. Such terrifying comprehension ability and understanding of the soul were unparalleled in the younger generation of Middle Ground. Only the geniuses of the real super forces in the Li Yuan main region could achieve this. Daowen, please take a seat. He Yangshu sat on the main seat and gestured for Zhuowen to sit on the secondary seat beside him. The secondary seat was second only to the main seat in the main hall. It was usually the seat of the Divine Firmament Soul sect's vice sect master. He Yangshu allowed Zhuowen to sit in this seat, which showed how much importance he attached to Zhuowen. Zhuowen did not act pretentious and directly sat on it. Qin Ruebwa and the 2 elders sat on the side. Daowen, I heard from the 5th elder that you are not from Middle Ground. He Yangshu asked with a smile. Zhuowen nodded and did not say anything else. The expression on He Yangshu's face became more and more certain. Then you must be from the Li Yuan main region. It's impossible for a peerless genius like you to appear in the central continent. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of understanding. He finally knew why He Yangshu and the others were so enthusiastic about him. It turned out that these guys had mistaken him for a genius from a major force in the Li Yuan main region. Chapter 3860. After that, He Yangshu did not ask about Zhuowen's background anymore. Instead, he chatted with Zhuowen about trivial matters. Especially when He Yangshu mentioned about the Li Yuan main region. Zhuowen naturally did not know about these things. He only touched on these topics briefly and did not delve too deeply. Thus, he did not arouse He Yangshu's suspicion. Oh right, sect leader I heard that Hongwu Shengzhen's entrance trial is about to start. Is there anyone from your Divine Firmament Soul sect participating in this trial? During the conversation, Zhuowen suddenly interrupted and asked about Hongwu Shengzhen's entrance trial. He Yangshu looked at Zhuowen in surprise. He did not expect him to be interested in Hongwu Shengzhen's entrance trial. Hongwu Shengzhen's entrance trial was a big deal to the entire Wukong state. However, to the prodigies of the heavenly demon clan, it was a trivial matter. However, since Zhuowen asked, He Yangshu naturally would not avoid the question. Hongwu Shengzhen's entrance trial is basically targeted at the disciples of Hongwu Shengzhen's subsects. It has nothing to do with our Divine Firmament Soul sect. He Yangshu smiled. Zhuowen did not panic and continued. Of course, I know that. However, Hanwu Shengzhen's quota is not only limited to the subsects. They will also allocate a quota to other sects that they think have potential. The Divine Firmament Soul sect's power in middle ground is enough to be ranked in the top 10. I think Hanwu Shengzhen must have noticed it. Zhuowen said calmly. He Yangshu smiled. He was not surprised. Our Divine Firmament Soul sect does have 2 quotas. However, we do not intend to participate in Hanwu Shengzhen's entrance trial. Oh. After all, Hanwu Shengzhen is one of the 4 Shengzhen. Isn't your Divine Firmament Soul sect tempted? Zhuowen smiled. He Yangshu said proudly, Hanwu Shengzhen's foundation and power are indeed not something my Divine Firmament Soul sect can compare to. In terms of soul cultivation, Hanwu Shengzhen might not be much better than the Divine Firmament Soul sect. Hearing this, Zhuowen secretly nodded. He Yangshu's words were not without reason. In the Divine Firmament Soul sect's visualization tower, there were many secret manuals that even the 4 Shengzhen might not be able to compare to. After all, in the visualization tower, there were even visualization diagrams that surpassed the heaven-shattering tier. Although they were damaged, that was still very impressive. In addition, the Divine Firmament Soul sect mainly cultivated the soul. Even if they joined Hanwu Shengzhen, it would probably not be of much help in terms of soul cultivation. Sect Master, he is right. Your sect's cultivation standards are more unorthodox. The 4 Shengzhen really might not be able to give you more things. Zhuowen nodded. However, there are only 4 months left until Hanwu Shengzhen's entrance trial. If you are interested, you can go and watch the battle. In the Liyuan main region, including many states, our Wukong state can only be considered as above average. In the trial, some extremely outstanding monstrous geniuses will definitely appear. We can watch a good show. He Yangshu chuckled. Zhuowen shook his head and said, I was just casually mentioning it. I really don't care about a trial of this level. He Yangshu and the others were all in awe when they heard this. They did not feel that Zhuowen was exaggerating. In their eyes, Zhuowen was undoubtedly a genius of the Heavenly Demon clan. Therefore, it was very normal for him to say such words. That's true. Who is our young friend Dawen? Naturally, he won't be interested in such a trial. He Yangshu rubbed his hands as he spoke and continued, Young friend Dawen, I once heard that the 3 devil clans of the Liyuan main region have unique methods of cultivating the soul. If I may be so bold as to ask you to demonstrate your celestial demon clan's method of cultivating the soul for me, Jian Chen said with a smile. At this point, He Yangshu's eyes revealed a fanatical look. His soul had been stuck at the heaven-crushing 7 transformations for too long. Even if he crazily comprehended the demonic essence transformations diagram and the supreme Shantian diagram, it was still useless. He knew that if he wanted to continue breaking through, he had to absorb more visualization diagrams. Only then could he verify his own Tao of the soul and find out what his flaws were. Zhuowen was stunned at first, but he quickly reacted. It seemed that He Yangshu had mistaken him for a member of the so-called Heavenly Demon clan. However, he knew nothing about the Heavenly Demon clan. He had never even heard of it. However, looking at He Yangshu's attitude, Zhuowen acutely sensed that the 3 demon clans didn't seem to be much weaker than the 4 Shengzhen clans. They might even be stronger. Seeing that Zhuowen had fallen silent, He Yangshu hurriedly said, Dawen, don't misunderstand. I'm just suggesting. You don't have to take it to heart. If it's inconvenient, it doesn't matter. However, if you're willing to show me the soul cultivation method, you can choose any one of the visualization diagrams in the visualization tower as a sign of my sincerity. Zhuowen took another look at He Yangshu. He didn't expect He Yangshu to be so willing to spend so much money. The most valuable things in the visualization tower were the demonic essence transformations diagram and the supreme Shantian diagram. If he really agreed, he would definitely choose one of these two books. No matter which one it was, if he took it away, it would be a great loss to the Divine Firmament Soul sect. Qin Ruebwa, the fifth elder, and the sixth elder's expressions changed drastically. They hurriedly signaled to He Yangshu with their eyes. Unfortunately, He Yangshu didn't pay attention to them at all. Instead, he looked at Zhuowen with bright eyes. He knew that whether he could obtain the opportunity to break through depended on the youth in front of him. Sect Master I won't bully you. I agree to your conditions. If you can really comprehend something, I want to borrow the demonic essence transformations diagram in the visualization tower to study for a month. If you don't gain anything, I won't take anything from your Divine Firmament Soul sect. Zhuowen said indifferently. He Yangshu was stunned for a moment before revealing an excited expression. He didn't expect Zhuowen to be so easy to talk to. Thank you, Brother Daowen. He Yangshu bowed deeply to Zhuowen. This was his sincere gratitude. Qin Ruebwa and the two elders looked at Zhuowen with eyes full of admiration. He was clearly a genius from a large faction, but he could still be so approachable. There weren't many people like him in the 100 regions. Follow me to the square outside the main hall. As Zhuowen spoke, he took a step forward and landed in the center of the square outside. He Yangshu and the other three followed closely behind. They all stared at Zhuowen without blinking. Zhuowen wasn't a genius from the Heavenly Demon clan, so he naturally didn't know the Heavenly Demon clan's soul cultivation technique. However, He Yangshu probably hadn't seen a cultivator from the Heavenly Demon clan before, so he definitely wouldn't be able to tell if Zhuowen used the soul cultivation technique. Zhuowen planned to use the primordial chaos visualization diagram. This visualization diagram was the strength of a large family and faintly surpassed the supreme Shantian diagram. Chapter 3861. Rumble. A purple-gold torrent shot out from between Zhuowen's brows and transformed into a purple-gold river that would never change. Zhuowen stepped onto the purple-gold river with his right foot. Zhuowen walked up step by step and ascended into the sky like a soaring cloud. A terrifying aura crushed down like a tidal wave and enveloped the entire Divine Firmament Soul sect. Bam, bam, bam. Qin Ruebwa, the fifth elder, and the sixth elder's expressions changed drastically. Their bodies trembled as they knelt on the ground. The aura of this purple-gold river was too terrifying. It suppressed their souls to the point that they were constantly scrambling around. Upon closer inspection, cherry-red blood flowed out from between their brows. This was a sign that their souls had been injured. He Yangshu stood in the same spot, but from his slightly trembling shoulders, it was clear that He Yangshu was also slightly affected. Although Zhuowen's soul had just broken through to the heaven-crushing 6 transformations, the primordial chaos visualization diagram that he cultivated had surpassed the demonic chi transformation diagram and the supreme Shantian diagram in the visualization tower. In addition, the power of his soul was also extremely extraordinary. Therefore, even though He Yangshu's soul cultivation was a whole major realm higher than Zhuowen's, he was still affected by Zhuowen's soul. So powerful. So powerful, Qin Ruebwa, the fifth elder, and the sixth elder supported each other with difficulty and sat cross-legged on the side. They began to circulate their soul power together and barely managed to withstand the purple-gold river's aura. He Yangshu stared fixedly at the purple-gold river, and the more he looked, the more enlightened he became. When Zhuowen stepped on the purple-gold river and landed on the ground again, He Yangshu had already closed his eyes and entered a state of enlightenment. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and the purple-gold river surged and returned to between his brows. Qin Ruebwa and the other two sighed lightly as the pressure on their bodies instantly disappeared. They stood up and walked to Zhuowen's side with reverence. Your sect leader should have gained some enlightenment. Then I have not failed my mission. Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Daowen, you really are the successor of the celestial demon clan after all. Your method of cultivating the soul is just too profound. It's probably even greater than the demonic energy demonification diagram. Qin Ruebwa raised his thumb in admiration. Zhuowen smiled faintly and said, Sect Master, his epiphany might require some time. It just so happens that I'm free during this period of time. Can Brother Qin open the visualization tower for me again? Qin Ruebwa exchanged glances with the fifth and sixth elders, and then he nodded and said, since it's Brother Daowen's request, then it's naturally not a problem. Thus, Zhuowen took the visualization tower's door plate and entered the tower again. Apart from the demonic energy demonification diagram, Zhuowen had basically comprehended all the other diagrams in the visualization tower. He had entered this time to comprehend the demonic energy demonification diagram as well and fuse it into the primordial chaos visualization diagram. 5 days later, Zhuowen opened the door to the visualization tower once more. He discovered that He Yangshu was still standing where he was while Qin Ruebwa and the other two were still waiting by his side. Sect Master, he still hasn't woken up. Zhuowen was rather puzzled. He glanced at He Yangshu before asking Qin Ruebwa. Qin Ruebwa smiled bitterly. He also felt that He Yangshu's epiphany had taken a little too long. It had already been 5 days. Brother Daowen, the sect master promised you that you could comprehend the demonic energy demonification diagram in the visualization tower for a month. Why have you come out now? Qin Ruebwa asked in surprise. Because I've completely comprehended the demonic energy demonification diagram. Zhuowen said calmly. I see. What? You've comprehended the demonic energy demonification diagram? Qin Ruebwa immediately jumped up and looked at Zhuowen as if he had seen a ghost. Yeah. Why? Is there a problem? Zhuowen shook his head and said helplessly. Qin Ruebwa immediately stuttered. Brother Daowen, then, to what extent have you cultivated it to? Zhuowen thought for a moment and said, I've probably cultivated it to the lesser success stage. However, I've already figured out the circulation route of the demonic energy demonification diagram. As long as I cultivate according to that circulation route, I'll be able to reach the greater success stage soon. Qin Ruebwa was about to go crazy. It had only been 5 days, and Zhuowen had already cultivated the demonic energy demonification diagram to the lesser success stage. Qin Ruebwa recalled that when he cultivated the demonic energy demonification diagram, it had taken him nearly 100 years to cultivate it to the lesser success stage. This was already considered the shortest time among all the experts in the Divine Firmament Soul sect who had cultivated this visualization diagram in the past. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be known as the strongest genius since the establishment of the Divine Firmament Soul sect. However, this youth in front of him was even more abnormal. He had achieved what he had needed 100 years to achieve in 5 days. This made Qin Ruebwa feel as if he had lived like a dog all these years. I've already delayed in your sect for too long. I still have important matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first. See you again. Zhuowen ignored the shocked expressions of Qin Ruebwa and the two elders. Instead, he cupped his fists at them and took out the divine ship, vanishing on the spot. Not long after Zhuowen left, He Yangshu, who was originally standing motionlessly on the spot, slowly opened his eyes. His eyes burst forth with a light that could not be looked at directly, and then a blazing light surged between his brows. This light rushed out from between his brows and shot straight into the sky. Instantly, the entire sky seemed to be pierced through by this beam of light. An incomparably vast and terrifying pressure crushed down from this beam of light, causing Qin Ruebwa and the other two to involuntarily kneel on one knee on the ground. Sect Master has broken through, he has finally broken through. Qin Ruebwa and the other two were not shocked but delighted, and their eyes were filled with excitement. The beam of light in the sky did not last for too long, dissipating into countless specks of light that surged into the depths of He Yangshu's brows in a flurry. And that terrifying pressure between heaven and earth also vanished like smoke in thin air. He Yangshu involuntarily roared with laughter. He laughed very freely, and tears gushed out from the corners of his eyes. His spirit had stagnated at the early stage of the shattering heaven seventh transformation for as long as tens of thousands of years. Finally, today, he found the opportunity to breaking through to the middle stage of the shattering heaven seventh transformation. Moreover, after He Yangshu saw the spirit power that Zhuowen displayed, he seemed to have seen the path of spirit cultivation in the future. Zhuowen's spirit display was like opening the door to a new world for him, leading him to step into a new realm. He knew that before his spirit reached the shattering heaven eighth transformation, he would not have too great of a bottleneck anymore. Congratulations on breaking through, Sect Master. Qin Ruebwa and the other two hurriedly went forward to congratulate. He Yangshu was in a great mood, and looking at Qin Ruebwa, he said, "Ruebwa, where's Brother Daowen? Quickly bring me to see him. It was all thanks to his help that I was able to break through this time. I have to personally thank him." Qin Ruebwa's expression was not too natural, and he said slowly, "Brother Daowen just left not long ago." Chapter 3862. Qin Ruebwa smiled bitterly. Brother Daowen entered the visualization tower, but he came out 5 days later. He said that he had already cultivated the demonic origin demonic painting to lesser mastery and didn't need to stay any longer. He left just like that. He Yangshu's pupils constricted. He suspected that he had heard wrongly and repeated, "What did you say? Did I hear wrongly? You said that Brother Daowen only spent 5 days to cultivate the demonic origin demonic painting to lesser mastery. How is that possible?" Qin Ruebwa said bitterly, "I don't believe it either, but Brother Daowen doesn't have to lie to me, right? After all, the visualization tower was open to him for a month, but he came out in 5 days. It's obviously not beneficial to him." He Yangshu fell silent. Qin Ruebwa was right. Zhuowen had a month, but he came out in 5 days. This action was simply incomprehensible. Unless it was really as Zhuowen said, that he had indeed cultivated the demonic origin demonic painting to lesser mastery in 5 days. He Yangshu took a deep breath and looked at the sky. He sighed. He's really a genius. In the future, this Daowen will shine brightly in the Liyuan main region and even the entire Heshu realm. He's going to become a hegemon who dominates a region. It's a pity that we no longer have any ties with him. Qin Ruebwa and the other two nodded in agreement. As long as Zhuowen didn't die midway, he would definitely be a top-notch expert in the future. After Zhuowen left the Divine Firmament Soul sect, he headed straight for Evil King Island. There were only 4 months left until Hongwu Shengzhen's entrance trial. He was prepared to enter seclusion during these 4 months, hoping to increase his cultivation level. After all, he still had many chaos crystals on him, enough to increase his cultivation level by 1 or 2 minor realms. When Zhuowen was about to reach Evil King Island, the disguise on his face completely faded, and he returned to his original appearance. Evil King Island was still shrouded in black clouds all year round. From afar, it looked like a black pillar that pierced the sky. When Zhuowen was about to reach the shore of Evil King Island, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. A strong sense of danger assaulted his heart. Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as the sense of crisis welled up in his heart, 3 terrifying attacks suddenly swept over from 3 different directions and blasted onto Zhuowen's divine ship. Boom! Boom! The divine ship exploded with a loud bang, setting off a terrifying wave of fire. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. The moment the divine ship exploded, he turned into a purple ghostly figure and left the divine ship, landing on the shore of Evil King Island. He raised his head and looked at the three middle-aged men floating in the air in front of him. His expression did not look too good. This was because he recognized the three middle-aged men's robes. They were the robes of the Hong Martial Divine Sex Elders. Furthermore, the cultivation of these three people was not weak. They were all at the early stage of the Yin-Yang transformation realm. This Zhuowen has indeed returned to Evil King Island. I really didn't expect that we didn't wait in vain. A tall and sturdy middle-aged man looked coldly at Zhuowen as a cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. With the middle-aged man as the leader, the three of them quickly surrounded Zhuowen. Zhuowen's expression was ugly. The three of them were only at the early stage of the Yin-Yang transformation realm. Zhuowen was not afraid of them. What he was puzzled about was how the Hong Martial Divine Sect knew that he was on Evil King Island. How did you know my whereabouts? Zhuowen's eyes were cold as he asked. You don't have to ask. Obediently surrender and follow us back to the Hong Martial Divine Sect. You should know that with your cultivation, you are no match for us. The burly man said with disdain. Let me ask you again. How did you know my whereabouts? Zhuowen roared in a low voice. His voice carried blazing killing intent. The burly man was instantly frightened by the killing intent in Lin Fan's eyes and could not help but take a few steps back. However, he felt that it was a little embarrassing and took a few steps forward. He said fiercely, a mere empty god transformation realm ant dares to shout in front of me. You are courting death. With that, the burly man took the initiative to attack. His right palm blasted out and instantly, 9 palm prints surged out. Every palm print was as vast as a mountain and had a terrifying aura. It crushed towards Zhuowen. The other 2 men looked calm and did not have any intention of attacking. In their eyes, a mere empty god transformation realm ant was not qualified for the 3 of them to join forces. If it was not for Sikong Chiyu's orders, they would not even bother to follow. Only the burly man alone would be enough. The 9 palm prints were extremely fast. They landed on Zhuowen's body in unison, causing 9 deafening explosions to erupt. The burly man stood in his original position. His eyes revealed a trace of coldness and arrogance. In his eyes, Zhuowen was already a dead man. He did not even look at him. Just as the burly man's gaze landed on where Zhuowen was, a strong sense of danger engulfed his mind. Boom! There was a deafening explosion that reverberated in the burly man's ears. By the time he reacted, he saw a huge fist smashing into the space between his eyebrows. Poochie! The burly man flew out in a sorry state. Blood spurted out from between his eyebrows. A strange purple gold energy surged into the depths of his eyebrows like maggots. Ah! The burly man covered his eyebrows and let out a shrill scream. He kept rolling on the ground and screamed at the top of his lungs. He was like a prisoner who had been tortured hundreds of times. The 2 early-stage Yin-Yang transformation realm cultivators who had stopped not far away were shocked. They looked at Zhuowen and the burly man in disbelief. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He looked coldly at the other 2 cultivators. The killing intent in his eyes was no longer concealed. All of you can die as well. Zhuowen roared. It was like the roar of an injured beast. It was low and shocking. Kill him. The eyes of the 2 cultivators also erupted with piercing killing intent. As far as they were concerned, the only reason Zhuowen was able to injure the burly man was because the burly man had been careless, allowing Zhuowen to take advantage of the situation. Zhuowen summoned 9 void spirits and stood in front of the 2 cultivators, blocking them. At the same time, he pointed his sword finger at his eyebrows. A purple gold light surged out from the depths of his eyebrows. The golden light was extremely hot. As it surged, it turned into 2 large purple gold swords. The moment the 2 large purple gold swords flew out, the surrounding sword chi rushed into the sky as if it was going to cut the sky open. The two cultivators had just broken through Zhuowen's 9 virtual spirits when they felt the terrifying purple gold sword qi. Their expressions changed drastically. They actually felt the chilling aura of death from the 2 large purple gold swords. Swoosh! Under Zhuowen's cold gaze, 2 purplish gold swords sliced through the air, dragging long tails of light as they slashed towards the 2 cultivators. Before the 2 cultivators could react, the large purple gold swords pierced through their eyebrows. Chapter 3863. You. When Zhuowen took out the purple gold sword and killed the 2 early-stage yin-yang transformation cultivators, the burly man came to his senses. He was stunned by the scene before him. Since Zhuowen's soul had advanced to the 6th form of the heaven-crushing realm and cultivated the primordial visualization diagram that gathered the strengths of the great clans, the might of the soul sword insight he executed had completely undergone a terrifying transformation. The sword shape condensed from the soul sword essence also changed from the form of burning green lotus flames to the current appearance of a purple gold sword. Moreover, its power was extremely terrifying. Ordinary yin-yang transformation cultivators would find it difficult to resist the might of the purple gold sword. He deliberately used 2 soul sword intents to kill the 2 early-stage yin-yang transformation cultivators. He was not surprised at all. Instead, he felt that it was only natural. Zhuowen ignored the burly man's shock. He took a step forward and grabbed the burly man with his right hand. Then, he used his movement technique and rushed towards the depths of Evil King Island. After a while, Zhuowen arrived at the depths of Evil King Island. It was the entrance to the central valley where the Hong sect's new base was located. Prado, who was originally tied up at the entrance, was nowhere to be seen. The central valley was filled with evil spirits. Only the slovenly Daoist, Dao Kong, and Dokyo were absent. Where are the 3 people in this valley? Zhuowen grabbed the burly man's collar and asked coldly. The burly man was already scared out of his wits by Zhuowen. After Zhuowen interrogated him a little, he confessed. Zhuowen patiently listened to the burly man. However, the more he listened, the more furious he became. It was as if he wanted to burn the burly man alive. It turned out that the location of Evil King Island was leaked because a disciple of the Hong martial divine sect happened to pass by Evil King Island and saw Dao Kong, who was cultivating on the shore of Evil King Island. Originally, he did not pay much attention to a little boy like Dao Kong. However, the more he looked at it, the more familiar it seemed. Then, he recalled the arrest warrant issued by the Hong martial divine sect some time ago. Out of the 4 people on the wanted posters, there were 2 little Daoist children, and one of the little Daoist children looked exactly the same as the little Daoist children on the shore of Evil King Island. The Hong martial divine sect disciple immediately realized that he had found the wanted criminal of the sect. Thinking about the generous rewards from the sect, his eyes burned with passion as he rushed to the shore. After knocking out Dao Kong, he carried Dao Kong away from the Evil King Island and returned to the Hong martial divine sect. After Dao Kong was brought back to the Hong martial god sect, he immediately attracted the attention of the sect's upper echelons. They all knew that Dao Kong was a member of the Hong sect. Originally, they were not interested in the Hong sect, which had been in decline for a long time. However, this member of the Hong sect was after all a hidden danger. Therefore, Shi Shenhong sent an elder and a disciple to the Hong sect to silence them to prevent future trouble. However, that elder and disciple did not return. When the Hong martial divine sect sent people to the Hong sect's ruins, they only saw 2 corpses and empty ruins. That elder and disciple were killed, and it was highly likely that they were killed by the Hong sect's remaining members. This immediately attracted the attention of the sect's upper echelons, and they even issued an arrest warrant. Now that they had captured one of the Hong sect's remaining members, they could interrogate him and get him to confess the whereabouts of the other members. Even though Dao Kong was young, he had a backbone. No matter how they interrogated him, he would rather die than say a single word. In the end, Dao Kong angered the elder in charge of the interrogation. That elder immediately used a soul-searching technique on Dao Kong and obtained Dao Kong's memories. As for Dao Kong, because of the terrifying aftereffects of the soul-searching technique, he eventually turned into an idiot. The interrogation elder obtained the information he wanted and handed it over to Sikong Chiyu. Sikong Chiyu immediately brought several elders to the evil King Island and captured the slovenly Daoist and Dokyo. Especially when Sikong Chiyu saw that the person he wanted to capture was the slovenly Daoist, he was extremely shocked. After all, when they were ambushed by Prado, the slovenly Daoist showed his might and saved them all. Of course, Sikong Chiyu naturally saw Prado tied up at the entrance of the valley in the center of the evil King Island. However, when Sikong Chiyu remembered the Hong Sek situation, he made a move to test the slovenly Daoist. After that, he found that the slovenly Daoist was unable to withstand a single blow. Hence, he made a move to capture the slovenly Daoist and brought him back to the Hong martial divine sect. From Dao Kong's memories, they already knew about Zhuowen's existence. They also knew that Zhuowen had left the evil King Island for the central province. Hence, Sikong Chiyu sent 3 elders in the early stage of the Yin-Yang transformation realm to wait for him on the evil King Island. And as Sikong Chiyu expected, Zhuowen had indeed returned to the evil King Island, and had run into these 3 elders. But in the end, the 3 early Yin-Yang change elders were easily defeated by Zhuowen. When did Sikong Chiyu take them away? Zhuowen asked with a gloomy face. 3 days ago. They should be locked up in the prison of the Hong Martial Divine Sect's Law Enforcement Hall. The tall and sturdy man said with a terrified expression. How do you plan to deal with them? Zhuowen asked coldly. I am not sure about this. The tall and sturdy man lowered his head, not daring to look at Zhuowen. Do you plan to kill them? Or do you plan to get rid of them together after capturing me? Zhuowen said eerily. The tall and sturdy man felt Zhuowen's biting cold killing intent and quickly shook his head. Calm down. Sect Master will not kill Hong Shenwu and the rest for now. Because Hong Shenwu still has a lot of value. What do you mean? Zhuowen frowned and asked. Hong Shenwu has already confessed that he cultivated the incomplete version of the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra. Before obtaining the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra from Hong Shenwu, Sect Master will not make a move against Hong Shenwu. The tall and sturdy man's voice was very hurried, as if he was afraid of missing something. He continued, so, you better not kill me. If you kill me, you will only enrage Sect Master. At that time, Hong Shenwu and the rest will not be able to keep their lives. Zhuowen sneered and said, you already said that whether Hong Shenwu can live or not depends on when he confesses the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra. Who do you think you are? How can your life be compared to Hong Shenwu's? The tall and sturdy man's complexion became deathly pale. He suddenly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhuowen, please spare my life, I beg you. Zhuowen silently looked down at the tall and sturdy man and suddenly said, I can spare your life, but you must do something for me. What is it? The tall and sturdy man said emotionally. Chapter 38-64. Zhuowen stepped on the burly man's spine and stomped him to the ground. He said coldly, if you don't do it, you'll die now. If you do it, if you're lucky, you might be able to keep your life. The burly man laid on the ground with humiliation in his eyes. His heart was filled with mixed feelings, but in the end, he agreed to Zhuowen's condition. Swoosh! A ray of light streaked across the horizon and landed in front of the Hong Martial Divine Sect's majestic mountain gate. When the light faded, a burly man appeared in front of the Hong Martial Divine Sect's mountain gate. Greetings, Elder Jian Zhong. The guards at the 2 sides of the mountain gate immediately cupped their hands and bowed when they saw the burly man. Their eyes were filled with respect. Where's Elder Sikong? Elder Jianzhong's eyes flickered as he asked. One of the guards thought for a moment and said, Elder Sikong should still be in the law enforcement hall. He has already instructed us that if Elder Jianzhong, Elder Puyi, and Elder Lu return, we are to look for him in the law enforcement hall. As he spoke, the guard looked behind Elder Jianzhong and asked, Where's Elder Puyi and Elder Lu? The two of them are still on Evil King Island, so I came back first. Elder Jianzhong said indifferently. The two guards did not think much of it and allowed Elder Jianzhong to enter the mountain gate. Elder Jianzhong walked up the stairs behind the mountain gate and entered the Hong Martial Divine Sect. The law enforcement hall of the Hong Martial Divine Sect was located on an independent mountain peak. This mountain peak was named the Law Enforcement Peak. The law enforcement hall on top of it was extremely vast. From afar, it looked like a huge palace. After Elder Jianzhong arrived at the peak, he entered the law enforcement hall without any obstructions. At this moment, there were 5 people sitting in the law enforcement hall's huge hall. Sitting on the main seat was the Hong Martial Divine Sect Master, Shi Shenhong. Sikong Chiyu sat next to Shi Shenhong, while the other 3 people sat on both sides. They were all elders with rather high status in the sect. The 5 of them were discussing something. When Elder Jianzhong entered the hall, the 5 of them stopped talking. Shi Shenhong glanced at Elder Jianzhong and nodded, Jianzhong, take a seat. Elder Jianzhong didn't say anything and just sat there silently. Where are Elder Puyi and Elder Lu? Why didn't they come with you? Also, didn't I tell you to go to the Evil King Road and wait for that Juoan? When Elder Jianzhong had just sat down, Sikong Chiyu frowned slightly and asked in a deep voice. Elder Jianzhong said awkwardly, Elder Puyi and Elder Lu are still waiting at Evil King Island. I had something to do at the last minute, so I came back first. Sikong Chiyu's brows furrowed slightly. He was somewhat uncomfortable with Elder Jianzhong disobeying his orders without permission. Just as he was about to berate a few words, Shi Shenhong interjected. Sikong, you don't have to be so harsh. That Juoan is just a nameless pawn. Even an early yin-yang transformation stage elder can capture him. You're sending out 3 at once. You're truly making a big deal out of this. Even if Jianzhong leaves, the remaining Elder Puyi and Elder Lu can complete the mission perfectly. Shi Shenhong said indifferently. Sikong Chiyu fell silent. Shi Shenhong already said it to this extent, what else could he say? Furthermore, this Elder Jianzhong was originally a member of Shi Shenhong's faction. If he berated Elder Jianzhong in front of Shi Shenhong, it was clearly not giving Shi Shenhong face. Thinking up to here, Sikong Chiyu endured it and just said indifferently, don't do it again. Elder Jianzhong hurriedly cupped his hands toward Sikong Chiyu and said, Jianzhong understands. After that, Elder Jianzhong cupped his hands toward Shi Shenhong and said, Sect Master, Jianzhong may be presumptuous to ask, does Hong Shenwu really have the remnant copy of the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra on him? Mentioning the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra, Shi Shenhong's expression immediately became solemn. At first, I didn't believe it. After all, the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra was destroyed in front of Hanwu Shengzhen's many powerhouses back then. But Hong Shenwu personally displayed overwhelming righteous energy in front of me. Although I didn't cultivate the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra before, I can also recognize the aura of overwhelming righteous energy. What he displayed was indeed genuine overwhelming righteous energy. Shi Shenhong said solemnly. The moment these words came out, inside the hall, everyone revealed visibly moved expressions. They all knew the value of the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra. This was the #1 exorcism classic. Furthermore, even cultivators without exorcism talent themselves had the possibility of cultivating it too. As long as they cultivated this kind of classic, then they would not need to carry fluorites in the dark and could rely on exorcism power to dispel evil spirits, even refining evil spirits. Since the remnant copy is on him, why doesn't Sect Master kill him and seize his spirit ring? Elder Jian Zhong asked. Shi Shenhong shook his head and said, Jian Zhong, you're thinking too simply. That Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra remnant copy has already been utterly destroyed by him. Right now, that cultivation method is hidden in this old fellow's head. Can't use soul-searching art? Elder Jian Zhong asked with furrowed brows. Shi Shenhong smiled coldly and said, memories obtained by soul-searching tend to be incomplete. If we soul-search that old fellow, what we obtain is an even more incomplete Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra. How will we still cultivate it? Elder Jian Zhong scratched his head and asked, then what do we do now? Looking at Hong Shenwu, that old fellow's appearance, I'm afraid that he'd rather die than say the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra. Shi Shenhong smiled coldly and said, this old fellow is indeed stubborn. But he has a fatal weakness. It's shielding his shortcomings. He's very concerned about his two precious disciples. We just need to make a move on his two disciples. I don't believe that this old fellow won't cooperate. As he said, Shi Shenhong stood up and said to an old man on the left seat, Law Enforcement Elder, this matter will be left to you. It's best to fish out the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra from that old fellow as soon as possible. Let's go first. Shi Shenhong got up and prepared to leave the hall. Sikong Chiyu and the rest also followed closely behind. Sect Master, I wish to stay behind and interrogate together with Law Enforcement Elder. I also wish to share Sect Master's burden and quickly interrogate out the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra, Elder Jian Zhong suddenly said. Shi Shenhong nodded his head and said indifferently, since you wish to stay behind, then stay behind. Hope that you all don't disappoint me. Before long, there was only Elder Jian Zhong and Law Enforcement Elder left in the hall. Jian Zhong, I didn't expect that you're suddenly so interested in interrogation. I remember that what you were most unwilling to come to in the past was this old man's law enforcement hall. What's with you today? Did you eat the wrong medicine? Law Enforcement Elder narrowed his eyes, sizing up Elder Jian Zhong. Elder Jian Zhong was slightly nervous but calmed down very quickly and said, Law Enforcement Elder, I'm naturally not interested in your law enforcement hall. But I'm interested in Hong Shenwu, this old fellow. Furthermore, you also know that if I can help interrogate out the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra, Sect Master will regard me even more highly too. Chapter 3865. Clang. Patriarch of Law Enforcement came to the deep part of the main hall. He pressed his right palm on the wall on the left, and the place where his palm was pressed slowly caved in. Immediately after, a strange thumping sound came from below the wall. It was as if someone was walking quickly from below. It sounded particularly horrifying. Elder Jian Zhong was surprised to see that below the wall, the ground about 4 square meters had caved in and separated from the middle, revealing a pitch-black tunnel. The dungeon of the Law Enforcement Hall is really secretive. The entrance is hidden here. No one would have thought of it. Elder Jian Zhong murmured to himself. Patriarch of Law Enforcement said proudly, of course. This tunnel was designed by me. There are 81 mechanisms hidden in the tunnel, and each mechanism is different. Even if an expert at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm accidentally activates the mechanism, he will die. Elder Jian Zhong frowned slightly, as if he was lost in thought. Patriarch of Law Enforcement didn't notice Elder Jian Zhong's strange look, and continued, Jian Zhong, follow me. The mechanism in this tunnel is horrible. If there is no guide, the mechanism will be activated, and it will be terrible. Patriarch of Law Enforcement reminded Elder Jian Zhong several times, and then they entered the tunnel. Elder Jian Zhong followed closely behind Patriarch of Law Enforcement, imitating his steps. The tunnel was quite spacious. 4 or 5 people standing side by side in the tunnel would not feel crowded. On both sides of the tunnel, there were bright lights, and the whole tunnel was as bright as day. After a while, they walked out of the tunnel and came to a bronze gate that was 10 meters high. The surface of the bronze gate was covered with dense chains, which tightly bound the whole gate. Elder Jian Zhong noticed that there was a palm-shaped dent in the center of the bronze gate. Patriarch of Law Enforcement stretched out his right hand and put it on the dent. His palm fit perfectly with the dent. Crack! 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 Inside the bronze gate, there was the sound of heavy chains sliding. Many chains on the surface of the gate seemed to be alive, moving to both sides and finally hiding in the darkness. After the chains disappeared, the bronze gate was freed and slowly opened to both sides. Behind the gate, there was a bluestone avenue that was wider than the tunnel. On both sides of the bluestone avenue, there were neatly arranged cages with iron fences. There were more or less prisoners in these cages. Elder Jian Zhong could see that after the bronze door opened, these prisoners did not even lift their eyelids. They were probably numb from being locked up for too long. Elder of Law Enforcement brought Elder Jian Zhong along the bluestone path and walked towards the depths. After about a quarter of an hour, the two of them arrived at the end of the bluestone path. There was a huge empty space there, and above the empty space, there was a huge iron cage floating in the air. Upon closer inspection, the top of the iron cage was suspended in midair by a thick and pitch-black chain. There were 3 people locked up in the iron cage. The Law Enforcement Patriarch waved his right hand. With a creaking sound, the black chains that were tied to the iron cage slowly sank down. Clang! The iron cage fell to the ground, and the 3 people in the cage were shocked. Elder Jian Zhong's gaze landed on the 3 people in the cage. He immediately recognized them. They were the slovenly Taoist, Dao Kong, and Dokio. The slovenly Taoist's hands and feet were bound by a golden energy, and he could only lie in the cage miserably. Dao Kong was kneeling on the ground with a silly smile, and saliva was dripping from the corner of his mouth. Dokio hugged his knees helplessly, and his head was on his chest. His entire body was trembling. The Law Enforcement Patriarch opened the side door of the cage and pulled the smiling Dao Kong out. Pain, pain, Dao Kong was in pain, but the silly smile on his face did not stop. What do you want? The slovenly Taoist's expression changed slightly. He struggled to crawl over and shouted at the Law Enforcement Patriarch. The Law Enforcement Patriarch sneered. He looked down at the slovenly Taoist and said, Hongshanwu, my patience is limited. Now, hurry up and tell me the cultivation method of Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra. If not, I'll kill your silly disciple. The slovenly Taoist was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He roared, Why? You've already searched his soul, and Dao Kong is already delirious. Why can't you let him go? The Law Enforcement Patriarch shook his head and said coldly, Hongshanwu, look at the situation now. Don't you understand the situation? Remnants of the Hong sect should not be allowed to exist in this world. Furthermore, you remnants of the Hong sect dared to kill our Hong martial divine sect's elders, so all of you deserve to die. Now, as long as you tell us the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra, we might give you a quick death and not continue to torture you. The slovenly Taoist calmed down and said softly, Let my 2 disciples go, and I'll give you the cultivation method of the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra. The Law Enforcement Patriarch's lips curled into a mocking smile. Let go of these 2 remnants who might become trouble for our Hong martial divine sect in the future. Hongshanwu, you must be joking. Right now, you don't have any choice. If you're smart enough to tell us the truth, I'll let your 2 adorable disciples suffer less. Or else. As he said that, the Law Enforcement Patriarch's eyes flashed coldly. Fine lightning bolts appeared in his palm as he squeezed Dao Kong's neck. Ah! Ah! Pain! 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 Dao Kong struggled with all his might. His eyes were almost white, and he was foaming at the mouth. His voice was shrill. No. Let him go. I'll tell you, the slovenly Taoist lowered his head in pain. He finally gave in, not because of himself, but because of his disciples. Dao Kong, Dao Jing, and the others had very tragic backgrounds to begin with. They were abandoned children who were left to fend for themselves in a barren land. It was the slovenly Taoist who had picked them up and raised them. The slovenly Taoist had already treated Dao Kong and Dokyo as his own son. How could he bear to see Dao Kong being tortured like this? The law enforcement patriarch's lips curled into a victorious smile as he threw Dao Kong onto the ground. Dao Kong was still twitching on the ground. Fresh blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. Save Dao Kong. He's dying. When the slovenly Taoist priest saw Dao Kong's appearance, his expression changed drastically, and he roared. The law enforcement patriarch was unmoved as he said indifferently, "Since you want to save your disciples, why aren't you writing the Heaven and Earth Haran Sutra?" Suddenly, the law enforcement patriarch noticed that Elder Jian Zhong, who had been standing beside him, suddenly walked to Dao Kong's side and carried him up. Chapter 3866. Elder Jian Zhong, do you know what you're doing? Elder of Law Enforcement's face darkened. He looked at Elder Jian Zhong coldly and suppressed his anger. Elder Jian Zhong gently put Dao Kong beside the slovenly Taoist. Then he turned to Elder of Law Enforcement and said with a wry smile, "Elder of Law Enforcement, I'm sorry this time." Elder of Law Enforcement was confused and asked subconsciously, "What do you mean?" As soon as Patriarch of Law Enforcement finished his words, a strong sense of crisis swept over him. He only felt a gust of cold air flowing from his tailbone to the depths of his mind. Feeling this strong sense of danger, Elder of Law Enforcement retreated decisively. When Elder of Law Enforcement retreated, a vortex appeared in the space beside Elder Jian Zhong. Then a fierce purple-gold sword rushed out and attacked Elder of Law Enforcement. Bang! 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 The purple-gold sword slashed 3 times in front of Elder of Law Enforcement. Each slash carried a terrifying sword chi. The surrounding ground and walls all burst open. The clanging sound of swords hitting each other could be heard in the air. Bang! After the last explosion, Elder of Law Enforcement managed to stop himself. He felt a sweet taste and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Who are you?" Elder of Law Enforcement looked up and was shocked to see a young man in black standing beside Elder Jian Zhong. Just now, this man suddenly appeared from the void and slashed out a purple-gold sword. The purple-gold sword was very strange. When it fell on him, it cut into his spirit. The terrifying sword essence seemed to be able to cut his spirit at any time. Now, there was still a terrifying sword essence left in his spirit. If he had not resisted it with all his might, he would have been killed. The middle stage of yin-yang change. You actually blocked my sword essence of spirit. The young man in black's eyes were cold and full of undisguised killing intent. His voice was as cold as a knife. Then he stepped forward and walked toward Elder of Law Enforcement. "Who are you?" Elder of Law Enforcement's eyes were full of fear and he could not help retreating. He was too afraid of the purple-gold sword. If he had not reacted in time, he would have been a dead man. Zhuowen, the black-clothed young man softly spat out these 2 words. However, it caused the pupils of the law enforcement elder to shrink until they turned into needles. "You! It's actually you!" Elder of Law Enforcement screamed. He then looked at Elder Jian Zhong and said angrily, "Elder Jian Zhong, you traitor. You actually brought a wanted criminal into the law enforcement hall's dungeon. You are playing with fire." Inside the iron cage, Elder Jian Zhong smiled bitterly. What could he do? At that time, he only had this one choice. If he didn't agree to Zhuowen's conditions, he would already be a dead man. So long-winded. You should just go to hell. Zhuowen noticed that the law enforcement patriarch was about to send a message. He stepped out with his right foot and turned into an illusory purple shadow, appearing beside the law enforcement patriarch in an instant. He took out a purple gold sword from between his eyebrows with his right hand and slashed it down, cutting off Patriarch of Law Enforcement's right hand that was about to send a message. The law enforcement elder screamed miserably. He was terrified. He didn't expect Zhuowen to be so strong. Die. Zhuowen didn't give the law enforcement elder any chance. He took out another spiritual soul sword essence. 2 spiritual soul sword essences, one from the front and one from the back, surrounded the law enforcement elder and completely pierced through him. With a plop, the law enforcement elder fell to the ground with blood all over his body. He didn't move an inch. Elder Jianzhong looked at the law enforcement elder on the ground and his legs couldn't help but tremble. He looked at Zhuowen with fear and respect. The law enforcement elder was a middle-stage yin-yang transformation expert after all. Yet, he was easily dealt with by Zhuowen. Elder Jianzhong was really starting to doubt whether Zhuowen was really a nihility god transformation stage cultivator. Was he pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? After the law enforcement elder was defeated by Zhuowen, many of the prisoners in the surrounding cages were alarmed. They all looked at the law enforcement elder who had fallen to the ground and were all shocked. They didn't expect that there would be someone who dared to cause trouble in the prison of the law enforcement hall of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Moreover, he killed the law enforcement elder. This was too cruel. They looked at Zhuowen's back and their eyes were filled with hope. They all hoped that Zhuowen would be able to save them. Unfortunately, they were disappointed to find that Zhuowen did not even look at them. Instead, he walked straight to the iron cage in the deepest part of the cave. No one dared to make a sound. This was a ruthless person who dared to kill the law enforcement elder. They didn't dare to say anything. If they were killed, it would be too late to cry. Senior Brother Daowen, when Dokio heard the commotion, he raised his head. His eyes were red and tears flowed down his cheeks. He threw himself into Zhuowen's arms. Zhuowen gently picked up Dao Jing and looked at the little Daoist boy who was crying in his arms. A sense of guilt rose in his heart. Senior Brother Daowen. Dao Kong had already woken up. He tilted his head and looked at Zhuowen. He repeated Dokio's words. Then, he laughed foolishly and clapped his hands. Senior Brother Daowen, Dao Kong, he doesn't recognize me in my master. Dokio sobbed. At this moment, the shackles on the slovenly Daoist had been released by Elder Jianzhong. He stood up and looked at Zhuowen with a complicated gaze. Finally, he bowed deeply to Zhuowen and said, Daowen, thank you for risking your life to save the 3 of us. The slovenly Daoist knew that Zhuowen didn't have to care about them. After all, the Hong Martial Divine Sect was too dangerous. With Zhuowen's strength, it was too risky to save them. The sloppy Daoist didn't even hope that Zhuowen would come back to save them. As long as Zhuowen could escape from the Hong Martial God Sect's bounty and take revenge for them in the future, he would be satisfied. However, Zhuowen didn't. Instead, he risked his life to save them. At this moment, the slovenly Daoist's view of Zhuowen had changed. I'm also a member of the Hong sect. I can't just ignore you guys. Zhuowen said seriously. Good. The slovenly Daoist smiled. Sect leader. We can't stay here any longer. Let's leave first. Zhuowen said solemnly. The slovenly Daoist nodded. Under Zhuowen's signal, they entered Zhuowen's great world. Elder Jianzhong, bring us out of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. After this, I will return the soul imprint to you and you will regain your freedom. Zhuowen said to Elder Jianzhong. Elder Jianzhong revealed a bitter smile. He knew that he was already on the same boat as Zhuowen. It was impossible for him not to help Zhuowen. Don't worry. Now that our fates are connected, I will definitely bring you out. Elder Jianzhong sighed. Zhuowen nodded. He waved his sleeve and entered the great world. Chapter 3867. In the deep passageway, Elder Jianzhong followed the memory in his mind and slowly walked towards the top of the passageway. When Elder Jianzhong's feet landed at the entrance of the passageway, he let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally left the dungeon. Next, he only needed to leave the Hongwu Divine Sect and he would be completely safe. He silently closed the entrance of the passageway and walked out of the main hall. However, when he reached the entrance of the main hall, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. His body trembled and his eyes widened as he stared at the square in front of the main hall. A figure was slowly walking over. This figure clearly saw Elder Jianzhong, and with steady footsteps, he arrived at the entrance of the main hall. Sect leader. Elder Jianzhong secretly broke out in cold sweat, but he forced himself to calm down. He respectfully bowed to this figure and said, "Thank you." The figure that suddenly appeared in the square in front of the main hall was the sect leader of the Hongwu Divine Sect, Shi Shenhong. "Jianzhong, where's the enforcement elder?" "I'm looking for him," Shi Shenhong casually said. Elder Jianzhong's face revealed a trace of hesitation as he said, "The enforcement elder is currently in the dungeon interrogating the remaining members of the Hong sect. I wonder why sect leader is looking for him." Shi Shenhong did not seem to notice the strange expression on Elder Jianzhong's face as he said seriously, "Doesn't Hong Shenwu have two disciples? One of them is already stupid and has no value. I plan to take the other one away. These two disciples of Hong Shenwu have cultivated a portion of the heaven and earth Haran scripture. If I search their souls, I might be able to piece together a portion of the heaven and earth Haran scripture's cultivation method." At this point, Shi Shenhong suspiciously said, "However, I sent a message to the enforcement elder but he didn't reply to me. That's why I personally came to the enforcement hall to find him." "Jianzhong, why didn't you enter the dungeon with the enforcement elder?" Elder Jianzhong was perturbed as he revealed a helpless smile. "The enforcement elder thinks that I don't know how to interrogate and that entering the dungeon would only be a hindrance. That's why he didn't let me in and went in alone to interrogate." Shi Shenhong shook his head and said, "The enforcement elder's temperament really hasn't changed after all these years. Since he didn't reply to my message, I'm afraid he's at a crucial point in the interrogation. Otherwise, he would have replied to me. I'll go in and look for him now. Jianzhong, do you want to come with me?" Shi Shenhong invited Elder Jianzhong. Elder Jianzhong shook his head and said, "Forget it. Since disciplinary elder doesn't want me to enter the dungeon, there is no need for me to force my way in. In that case, you can go back first." Shi Shenhong nodded. After Elder Jianzhong left, Shi Shenhong's eyelids twitched. For some reason, he felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Maybe he's a little crazy. Shi Shenhong shook his head and stepped into the main hall. He easily found the entrance to the dungeon and opened it. Shi Shenhong was, after all, the head of a sect. He had the authority to enter all the tunnels of the Hongwu God sect. Shi Shenhong walked with mysterious steps, smoothly passing through the passageway full of traps, arriving at the bronze door at the end of the passageway. At this moment, the bronze door was wide open. Shi Shenhong was not surprised. The bronze door was the entrance to the dungeon. Since the law enforcement elder had come in first, it was impossible for the door to be closed. The moment Shi Shenhong passed through the bronze door, he immediately felt that something was wrong. This was because he discovered that there were many places in the cage behind the bronze gate that had caved in. Furthermore, he could feel intense energy ripples from these places. It was obvious that an intense battle had just taken place here. Shi Shenhong's expression changed slightly. He followed the green stone path and quickly entered the depths of the dungeon. Not far from the deepest part, he saw the corpse of the law enforcement elder lying on the ground. He briefly checked and knew that the law enforcement elder was dead. He also noticed that in the deepest part of the green stone path, there was an iron cage that had been placed down. However, there wasn't a single person in the iron cage. Hong Shenwu and the other two who were originally locked up in the iron cage had disappeared without a trace. Who is it? How dare you make a move in my Hongwu God Sect's dungeon? You're simply courting death. Shi Shenhong roared angrily. He came to the door of a cage and tore it open. He grabbed the prisoner inside the cage and held it in his hand. Speak. What the hell is going on here? If you don't speak, you'll die immediately. Shi Shenhong roared. The prisoner trembled in fear. He naturally recognized Shi Shenhong's identity and knew that he was the #1 expert of the Hongwu God sect. How could he dare to disobey the orders of such an expert? Trembling, he recounted everything that had happened in the dungeon. What? It's actually Jian Zhong. Shi Shenhong revealed a look of disbelief. He once again recalled the unnatural expression on Elder Jian Zhong's face when he met him. He immediately realized that this person might be right. Shi Shenhong casually threw the prisoner on the ground and rushed towards the entrance of the dungeon. At the same time, he issued an emergency signal to the upper echelons of the sect, ordering them to be on alert. After Shi Shenhong entered the dungeon, Elder Jian Zhong knew that the matter would soon be exposed. Therefore, he hurriedly left this place and rushed towards the Hongwu God sect's mountain gate. As long as he left the Hongwu God sect, he could immediately use the divine ship to escape. At that time, he would have a chance to escape. Jian Zhong, you're in such a hurry. Are you planning to leave the sect? When Jian Zhong arrived at the stone steps in front of the mountain gate, a middle-aged man happened to be returning from outside the mountain gate. When he saw Jian Zhong, he immediately went up to greet him. This middle-aged man was also an elder of the Hongwu God sect. His cultivation was similar to Jian Zhong's, at the early stage of the yin-yang change realm. He had a good relationship with Jian Zhong. At this moment, Jian Zhong did not have the time to chat with this person. He casually brushed him off and hurriedly walked past him. Jian Zhong, why are you in such a hurry? Did something happen? The middle-aged man noticed that Elder Jian Zhong's expression was strange. He chased after him and asked with concern. I'm fine. I just wanted to go out and relax. Jian Zhong said absent-mindedly. The middle-aged man felt that Jian Zhong was a little strange. However, he did not think too much about it. Coincidentally, the communication jade talisman at his waist lit up. He stopped in his tracks and checked the communication jade talisman with his spiritual will. His body shook and he immediately drew his divine sword and slashed at Jian Zhong. Gotcha. However, when the divine sword was about to reach Jian Zhong's back, a purplish gold sword suddenly appeared behind Elder Jian Zhong and cut the divine sword in half. The purplish gold sword did not lose its momentum and continued to slash at the middle-aged man. Chapter 3868. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Zhuowen's voice could be heard. Then, Zhuowen dashed out of the great world, grabbed the middle-aged man, and dashed towards the mountain gate. Although he was in the great world, his spiritual will had been observing the outside world. When he saw the middle-aged man immediately attack Elder Jian Zhong after checking the communication jade amulet, he knew that they had been exposed. At the same time, his spiritual will sensed a terrifying aura within the Hongwu divine sect. These auras were heading towards the mountain gate. It seemed like the experts of the Hongwu divine sect were all alerted. Bang! Just as Zhuowen was about to leave the Hong sect, a strong ripple spread out from the Hongwu divine sect. Then, like a huge light shield, it covered the entire mountain range of the Hongwu divine sect. Zhuo Wen, on the other hand, crashed into the energy ripple that was like a protective barrier. His body was pushed back by the recoil. His feet stomped fiercely in the air as he involuntarily retreated dozens of steps. Every step he took created a terrifying shockwave that formed a boiling pillar of air under his feet. The two guards at the mountain gate stood behind the mountain gate in shock and anger. They didn't dare to fight with Zhuowen. They had seen with their own eyes how Zhuowen killed an elder in the early stage of the yin-yang transformation stage with a single slash. Wouldn't they be courting death if they went up? Furthermore, they recognized Zhuowen's identity. It was Zhuowen who was wanted by the Hongwu divine sect. This is the sect protection array. It seems like the sect master has found out that the enforcement elder has been killed and has issued the highest level of martial law in the sect. Even the sect protection array has been activated. Elder Jian Zhong's face was as pale as a sheet. His body trembled as he continued, "This is a heaven-breaking level 7 array. It's extremely powerful and terrifying." Zhuo Wen's face changed slightly. A heaven-breaking tier 7 formation was indeed a little scary. With his current strength, there was no way he could break through such a formation. Zhuowen. How dare you barge into the Hongwu divine sect to kill someone? He's simply courting death. Elder Jian Zhong, you are truly audacious. How dare you help a wanted criminal kill a fellow disciple? You traitor, you must die. Countless figures dashed out from the depths of the Hong martial divine sect. They were like a group of demons dancing in a frenzy, densely packed and numerous. Leading the group were more than 10 elders of the Hongwu divine sect. They were the upper echelons of the sect and were at least in the middle stage of the yin-yang transformation stage. Some of them were even at the pinnacle of the yin-yang transformation stage. What surprised Zhuowen was that he didn't see Sikong Qiyu among these people. Elder Jian Zhong's face turned pale as he knelt on the ground. He muttered to himself, "It's over. We're all dead. There's no way we can escape." Zhuowen's gaze was serious. He did not care about Elder Jian Zhong, who had lost his will to fight. Instead, he hovered in the air and looked at the dozens of figures in front of him, landing not far away from him. Zhuowen, surrender now. The person leading the group was an old man with white hair and beard. His aura was the strongest among these people and he should be at the pinnacle of the yin-yang transformation stage. According to Zhuowen's current strength, he might not be this old man's opponent. Zhuowen knew that he couldn't delay any longer. If Shi Shenhong came out, he wouldn't even have the chance to escape. Therefore, the moment these people appeared in front of him, Zhuowen decisively took out the 3-fire true mirror. Zhuowen's right hand gripped the copper mirror fragment tightly. Vast grand mist god force poured out from his body and entered the 3-fire true mirror. Instantly, the 3-fire true mirror emitted a terrifying pressure. Strange blood-red flames burst out from the copper mirror and gathered in the air. In a short while, the entire sky above the Hong martial divine sect was filled with a sea of blood-red flames. It was a strange and terrifying scene. The instant the blood-red flames filled the sky above the Hong martial divine sect, an extremely terrifying pressure fell on the entire Hong martial divine sect, as if gravity had multiplied by countless times. Many of the cultivators who were originally floating in the air immediately staggered and fell to the ground, causing many cracks to appear on the ground. Only the dozen or so yin-yang transformation stage cultivators were barely able to maintain their hovering position in the air. However, from their slightly trembling bodies, it could be seen that they were having a difficult time resisting the terrifying oppressive might. This is the 3-fire true mirror that was auctioned off by the World Auction House. It's actually on this kid. The old man leading the group looked at this scene in shock. His body trembled and his heart was filled with fear. This was a grade 4 astral weapon fragment. Its strength was comparable to a god domain transformation stage expert strength. Even if Shuowen's cultivation wasn't enough and he couldn't display the full strength of a grade 4 astral weapon fragment, it was still terrifying. They might not be able to block it easily. Puchi. Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale, but he still gritted his teeth and continued to channel energy into the three-fire true mirror. On the other side, he was frantically absorbing the chaos crystals in the outside world to replenish the large amount of energy in his body. However, it didn't help. The energy he absorbed was much slower than the energy he released. This caused Zhuowen to become weaker. Blood Fire Mountain Collapse. Zhuowen's gaze turned cold as he summoned the three-fire true mirror in his hand. Instantly, boundless blood-red flames swept over, forming an incomparably huge mountain. The surface of this mountain was burning with blood-red flames. It fell fiercely and covered the dozen or so upper echelons of the Home Martial Divine Sect. The eyes of the peak yin-yang transformation stage old man narrowed. He gathered all the energy in his body and barely resisted the terrifying pressure of the mountain. He flew back with difficulty, trying to escape the range of the Blood Mountain. Unfortunately, as soon as he left the range of the Blood Mountain, a purplish gold sword slashed at him from the strange void and slashed his back. The old man spat out a mouthful of blood and fell forward pathetically, falling into the range of the Blood Mountain. Zhuowen. He naturally knew that the one who attacked was Zhuowen. He almost cursed out loud. Unfortunately, he didn't manage to curse out loud as the Blood Mountain covered his entire body. Boom! 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 The Blood Mountain smashed into the ground. Instantly, terrifying blood-red flames swept out in all directions. 2/5 of the territory of the Home Martial Divine Sect was engulfed in the horrifying blood flame. Mountains and palaces were all destroyed. Not even ruins were left behind. The blood-red flames were too terrifying. They started to condense together, forming a blood pillar that pierced through the entire Home Martial Divine Sect and into the sky. Boom! 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 The Home Martial Divine Sect protection array shone with a blazing light and blocked the blood pillar. However, it didn't last long. The sect protection array crumbled inch by inch, turning into dust. Chapter 3869. The moment Shi Shenhong flew out of the enforcement hall, he could feel the terrifying pressure released by the three-fire true mirror. Following which, his eyes turned red as he saw an incomparably huge blood mountain crashing down from the sky above the mountain gate. With a loud bang, the blood mountain landed within the sect. Following which, a flood of blood flames swept out like a ferocious beast, engulfing 2/5 of the sect. This blood flame was simply too terrifying. Everywhere it passed, everything was incinerated. Not even a blade of grass was left behind. As for the sect protecting array around the Home Martial Divine Sect, it started to crumble and disappear under this attack. What made Shi Shenhong even more devastated was that the 10 upper echelons of his Home Wu Divine Sect were completely annihilated by this attack. These upper echelons were the backbone of the Home Wu Divine Sect. Even the weakest amongst them was in the yin-yang transformation. Now that all of them were dead, the impact on the Home Wu Divine Sect was simply too great. Zhuowen. I want you dead. I want you dead. I want you dead. Shi Shenhong let out a beast-like roar. His voice was so loud that it shook the entire Home Martial Divine Sect. It reverberated throughout the heavens and earth. A terrifying aura burst out from Shi Shenhong's body. His figure was like lightning as he charged out. He stopped above the blood flames and looked at the boundless blood flames. Then, he looked at Zhuowen, who had almost turned into a black dot and disappeared. He hesitated for a while, but in the end, he didn't chase after him. Instead, he used all his strength to extinguish the blood flames below him. This blood flame was emitted by the Grade 4 astral weapon, 3 Fire True Mirror. It had the characteristic of being indestructible. If this blood flame was allowed to continue wreaking havoc in the Hongwu Divine Sect, it wouldn't be long before it spread to the entire Hongwu Divine Sect. At that time, the Hongwu Divine Sect would really be annihilated. At the same time that Shi Shenhong was extinguishing the blood flames, an equally powerful figure flew over from the depths of the mountain range not far from the sect. This figure was the Hongwu Divine Sect's number 2 expert, Sikong Chiyu. This is, the blood flames of the 3 Fire True Mirror. Sect leader, what exactly happened? I just went out for a while, why did such a thing happen inside the sect? Sikong Chiyu said with immense shock. Shi Shenhong forcefully suppressed his rage and said to Sikong Chiyu, Sikong, all of this was done by that Zhuowen. Immediately chase after that Zhuowen. He had to bring him back. Otherwise, don't come back. Sikong Chiyu's pupils shrunk. She only felt that it was inconceivable. Zhuowen was only at the Nihility God transformation stage. How did he obtain the 3 Fire True Mirror? Furthermore, with Zhuowen's cultivation, he simply did not have the ability to activate the power of a rank 4 astral soldier like the 3 Fire True Mirror. However, that fella had done such a thing and even destroyed 2/5 of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Sikong, what are you waiting for? Why aren't you chasing after that Zhuowen? Shi Shenhong's gaze darkened as he looked at Sikong Chiyu. His tone became extremely unfriendly. Sikong Chiyu frowned slightly. Although she was very unhappy with Shi Shenhong's attitude, the latter was still the sect leader of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. She naturally could not disobey Shi Shenhong's orders. Since this kid can use the 3 Fire True Mirror, although his strength is nothing much, the 3 Fire True Mirror is too terrifying. Even I might not be able to block the attack of the 3 Fire True Mirror. Sikong Chiyu said worriedly. Don't worry. This kid's cultivation is too low. He must have paid a huge price to use the 3 Fire True Mirror. Furthermore, you only need to block them for a while. Shi Shenhong said coldly. Sikong Chiyu did not say anything else. She only nodded and flew towards the distant horizon. Shi Shenhong coldly looked at Sikong Chiyu's departing figure, then silently began to extinguish the blood flames in the surroundings. Although the blood flames covered a large area, Shi Shenhong's cultivation was extraordinary. He was even stronger than Sikong Chiyu, a mid-stage god domain transformation expert. Therefore, he did not need to use too much divine power to extinguish the blood flames. After Shi Shenhong extinguished the blood flames, he instructed a few elders to reorganize the sect. Then, with endless killing intent, he flew towards the distant horizon. This time, their Hong Martial Divine Sect had suffered heavy losses. If he did not kill Zhuowen, he, Shi Shenhong, would not be worthy of being the sect leader of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Whoosh! In the vast horizon, a stream of light rapidly swept past. It was a huge divine ship. At this moment, on the deck of the divine ship, Zhuowen stood silently at the forefront. His eyes were solemn as he controlled the ship to move forward. In his hand was a bottle of medicine. Divine pills were poured into his mouth, turning into surging medicinal energy that spread throughout his body, healing his injuries. With a wave of his sleeve, he grabbed Elder Jian Zhong. At this moment, Elder Jian Zhong's body was still trembling. His eyes were filled with the emotions of being reborn. Jian Zhong, I'll return this spiritual imprint to you. Now that you're free, you can leave. Zhuowen said calmly as he took out Elder Jian Zhong's spiritual imprint from his spiritual imprint and inserted it into the latter's spiritual imprint. Elder Jian Zhong looked at Zhuowen with a complicated gaze. He did not expect Zhuowen to have such a powerful trump card. In one move, he killed more than 10 elders of the Hong Martial Divine Sect and destroyed 2/5 of the sect. He began to doubt if this guy was really a void god transformation realm cultivator. Otherwise, how could he have such powerful means? Still not leaving? You won't be able to leave later. Zhuo coldly glanced at the slightly absent-minded elder Jian Zhong and said expressionlessly. Elder Jian Zhong came back to his senses and cupped his fists at Zhuo seriously. Then, he left his divine ship and fled in another direction. He decided to leave the central region. From now on, he would never take half a step into the central region. Not long after Elder Jian Zhong left, Zhuo expression changed slightly. A faintly discernible sense of danger began to surface in his mind. He released a powerful spiritual force and started to scan behind him. Then, his face turned gloomy. Hundreds of thousands of miles behind him, he discovered a figure rushing towards him. Moreover, this figure was getting faster and faster. The distance between them was rapidly shortening. In Zhuowen's spiritual force, he recognized the identity of this figure. It was Sikong Qiyu. In a short while, the wind and clouds above Zhuowen changed. An incomparably huge hand came crashing down on the divine ship. Zhuowen's reaction was extremely fast. The moment the hand came crashing down, he left the divine ship and retreated thousands of meters away. He watched as the divine ship was crushed by the huge hand. Chapter 38-70. Zhuowen's gaze looked at Sikong Qiyu vigilantly. Just now, he used the three-fire true mirror. Currently, his essence energy could be said to be greatly depleted. He could at most use the three-fire true mirror one more time now. But this thing must catch Sikong Qiyu off guard before he could hit her. And it was impossible for Sikong Qiyu to stand in place foolishly and be beaten by him. Therefore, the current situation was very disadvantageous to him. Sikong Qiyu, do you still remember what you said to Miss Luo back then? Zhuowen was silent for a moment and suddenly opened his mouth. Sikong Qiyu was taken aback and looked at Zhuowen rather surprisedly and said with a cold smile, "What do you mean by this? Isn't my meaning clear enough? You and I joining hands have the possibility of killing Shi Shenhong. Isn't your goal to kill Shi Shenhong?" Zhuowen said coolly. Sikong Qiyu's brows furrowed slightly. The killing intent in his eyes became stronger and stronger, staring fixedly at Zhuowen. But Zhuowen turned a deaf ear to Sikong Qiyu's killing intent. Instead, he looked at Sikong Qiyu silently. He knew that Sikong Qiyu was conflicted and hesitant right now. Otherwise, Sikong Qiyu would have long made a move to take action against him. Zhuowen was not in a hurry. He looked at Sikong Qiyu and waited silently, waiting for Sikong Qiyu's final answer. Shi Shenhong carried a bellyful of rage and unleashed his movement technique with all his might, rushing forward explosively. It was only to see places that he passed through, horrifying energy ripples spread out. The surrounding space was affected until it trembled violently, as if it would collapse at any time. Shi Shenhong virtually lost his reason, the fury in his chest continuously accumulating, wanting to completely vent it out at any time. Bang! 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 Only to see Shi Shenhong's figure sweep past a massive lake. Immediately, horrifying high waves surged on the lake's surface. The instant the high waves fell to the ground, the entire lake was collapsing. An unprecedentedly terrifying hole appeared. Furthermore, this hole was bottomless, akin to an abyss. It was pitch black, looking exceptionally terrifying and strange. While the lake water also poured into the abyss one after another. The naked eye could not see in the end where this lake water reached the abyss at all. Amen. Shi Shenhong seemed to have sensed something. The communication jade talisman at his waist lit up with a rather bright light. He slowed down a little and used his divine sense to check the message in the communication jade charm. After he finished reading, his face was filled with ecstasy. He sped up and mumbled to himself, "Zhuowen, you're dead meat. You're really dead. If I don't kill you today, I won't be the sect head of the Hong martial divine sect, Shi Shenhong. Before long, Shi Shenhong arrived at a valley. This was precisely the place that Sikong Chiyu mentioned in the message she gave him. At that moment, on the empty ground in the middle of the valley, Sikong Chiyu was standing. Beside her feet was a figure that was in a sorry state. This figure was bound by a powerful force and could not move at all. It could only struggle. When Shi Shenhong saw this figure, he immediately recognized that it was Zhuowen. However, just as Shi Shenhong was about to take a step forward, he thought of something and suddenly stopped. He looked suspiciously at Sikong Chiyu and said, "Sikong, if I'm not mistaken, this kid has the 3-fire true mirror on him. That's a rank 4 astral weapon, yet it was actually captured by you so easily." Sikong Chiyu smiled slightly and said, "Sect Master, this boy's cultivation is too low after all. He's only at the Void God transformation stage." He forcefully used a rank 4 astral weapon. Although he displayed great power, his foundation was injured because of this. He's already an arrow at the end of its flight. How can he be my opponent? Hearing this, Shi Shenhong nodded in agreement. There was no loophole in Sikong Chiyu's statement. After he chased out, he also guessed so. However, Shi Shenhong still did not approach Sikong Chiyu. Instead, he spread out his right hand and said coldly, "Now, hand this person over to me." Although Sikong Chiyu was the second in command of the Hong martial divine sect, Shi Shenhong had never trusted the former. Sikong Chiyu chuckled. She did not feel strange because of Shi Shenhong's lack of trust. Instead, she obediently lifted Zhuowen and threw him to Shi Shenhong. When Zhuowen was thrown over, Shi Shenhong let out a sigh of relief and relaxed his vigilance. The killing intent and fury in his eyes were incomparably cold as they shot out. This boy actually dared to break into the law enforcement hall's dungeon, kill more than a dozen of his Hong martial divine sect's higher-ups and destroy a large portion of the sect's territory. This was simply an unforgivable crime. He must kill this boy. However, the instant Zhuowen's figure approached, a strong sense of danger arose in Shi Shenhong's heart. Then, he felt a terrifying pressure enveloping his body, causing all the hair on his body to stand on end. Moreover, a large amount of sweat flowed out and rustled down. Divine Realm? Shi Shenhong immediately reacted. He knew that this was the power of the Divine Realm. Rumble. At the same time, a terrifying fist light blasted out from behind him, ruthlessly smashing towards the back of his head. Shi Shenhong could not be bothered with Zhuowen in front of him. He subconsciously thought that this Zhuowen was completely restrained and could not pose any threat to him. He suddenly turned around and punched behind him. 2 fists collided. Instantly, terrifying ripples rose in the surroundings. Moreover, a series of firecracker-like explosions resounded. Then, Shi Shenhong saw Sikong Chiyu's expressionless face. "Sikong Chiyu, you have big guts, actually daring to make a move against me. Are you trying to rebel?" Shi Shenhong was both shocked and furious. He really did not expect Sikong Chiyu to actually make a move, so he was not on guard. This was a hasty counterattack. However, Shi Shenhong was worthy of being a middle-stage divine realm transformation expert. He was even a minor realm higher than Sikong Chiyu. Even if he made a hasty counterattack, he still did not fall into a disadvantageous position and was evenly matched with Sikong Chiyu. But Shi Shenhong soon discovered a trace of a mocking smile at the corners of Sikong Chiyu's mouth. He was first stunned, then immediately felt a swift and fierce sword-intent surge out from behind him. Not good. Shi Shenhong's expression changed greatly. He had yet to turn around when a series of purplish-gold greatswords already slashed over, blasting into the depths of his forehead. A total of 49 purplish-gold greatswords slammed into Shi Shenhong's divine soul. Terrifying sword intent wreaked havoc and bombarded his divine soul without the slightest scruple, as if wanting to blow his entire divine soul into smithereens. Even if Shi Shenhong's divine soul had already reached shattering heaven's 7 transformations, being bombarded by 49 purplish gold greatswords still turned his divine soul into a complete mess. Sikong Chiyu, you actually dare to join forces with this ant, you deserve to die. Shi Shenhong was enraged. He erupted with a powerful divine domain, instantly suppressing Sikong Chiyu's divine domain. At the same time, he smashed a fist over ruthlessly. Sikong Chiyu's expression changed slightly. She turned around and blasted out a punch. Then, she discovered to her horror that Shi Shenhong's offensive was seriously too terrifying. She suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood and retreated repeatedly. Chapter 3871. At this moment, Shi Shenhong wasn't feeling too good either. He had lost the initiative to begin with. Sikong Chiyu's sneak attack succeeded, and then Zhuowen's 49 purplish gold greatswords pierced into his divine soul. He had already suffered considerable internal injuries. Now, after forcefully unleashing his divine domain and forcing Sikong Chiyu back with a punch, he could feel a sense of weakness gradually surging into his heart. But soon, his expression changed. He suddenly felt a terrifying pressure surging from the void behind him. He was all too familiar with this pressure. Wasn't it the pressure of the 3-fire true mirror that he felt in the Hong Martial Divine Sect? This ant, he can actually use the 3-fire true mirror again. Shi Shenhong suddenly turned around. He saw Zhuowen's right hand tightly grasping a rather broken bronze mirror. But it was this inconspicuous bronze mirror that had annihilated almost all of the higher-ups in the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Moreover, it had even destroyed 2/5 of the sect's territory. Ant. Die. Shi Shenhong's killing intent soared. He could tell that Zhuowen needed a period of time to gather power to forcefully activate the 3-fire true mirror. And this period of time was enough for him to get close to Zhuowen and kill him. Therefore, Shi Shenhong attacked without hesitation. He punched out and a terrifying fist imprint as vast as a mountain appeared in the sky. When the enormous fist imprint appeared and landed on Zhuowen's body, a figure blocked in front of Zhuowen and similarly punched out, blocking the fist imprint. The figure that blocked in front of Zhuowen was Sikong Chiyu. Zhuowen, use the 3-fire true mirror's power as much as you want. I'll block Shi Shenhong's attacks for you during this period of time, Sikong Chiyu said calmly. Zhuowen didn't say anything. Instead, he channeled the energy in his body into the 3-fire true mirror at an even faster speed. The terrifying blood flames became even more violent, shooting straight into the sky and igniting a boundless sea of blood flames. Sikong Chiyu, you still haven't realized your mistake. If you kneel in front of me and beg for mercy, perhaps I'll let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Shi Shenhong was both shocked and furious. This Sikong Chiyu was truly too despicable. She actually dared to obstruct him at this crucial moment. Sikong Chiyu sneered. She didn't answer Shi Shenhong's question. However, the movements of her hands became faster and more powerful. Her attacks became fiercer. Sikong Chiyu, why did you betray the Hong Martial Divine Sect? When have I, Shi Shenhong, treated you? Shi Shenhong saw that he couldn't completely take down Sikong Chiyu in a short period of time. At the same time, he also felt that Zhuowen's aura was getting stronger and stronger. He almost roared in rage, but his heart was filled with doubts. Sikong Chiyu was the second in command of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Her position and authority were only below him. He still found it somewhat hard to believe that Sikong Chiyu would betray him. This was simply illogical. Sikong Chiyu did her best to resist Shi Shenhong's attacks. Suddenly, she opened her mouth and said, Shi Shenhong, do you still remember the Xi family? Shi Shenhong was stunned and subconsciously muttered to himself, Xi family. Hoo, you're really an eminent person with short memory. 10,000 years ago, the number one family in Central State, the C family, could it be that you forgot? Sikong Chiyu's eyes seethed with killing intent as he growled. Amen. You're a remnant of the C family. The C family actually still has people alive. Shi Shenhong looked at Sikong Chiyu in surprise. But Sikong Chiyu smiled. It was just that his smile was filled with a piercingly cold intent. 10,000 years ago, the number one family in Central State, the C family, had boundless glory. They were the true number one force in Central State in name. Even the Hong Martial Divine sect back then was somewhat inferior compared to the C family. But on a certain night 10,000 years ago, a group of over a dozen experts entered the C family and instantly killed the C family's upper echelons, and exterminated the entire C family. And the C family's number one expert, C Shinyong, a middle-stage divine realm transformation mighty expert, actually died a violent death too. Sikong Chiyu's real name was Si Saitama. 1,000 years ago, he had once headed to the Li Yuan main region to train. But after he returned from training, what he saw were the C family's ruins as well as corpses buried in the ruins. Back then, Si Saitama knelt in the ruins and kowtowed heavily, swearing that he would definitely find the culprit and avenge the C family. Then, he wiped his tears and left the C family's ruins. After several hundred years of investigation, he finally found out the reason why the C family was exterminated and the culprit. Back then, the one who exterminated the C family was Hong Martial Shengzhen's divine devil transformation expert. And the reason why Hong Martial Shengzhen's experts moved out was because the C family hid a clue regarding a rank 5-star soldier. A rank 5-star soldier was far superior to a rank 4-star soldier. It had almost never appeared in Central State. Even in the Li Yuan main region, a rank 5-star soldier was an extremely rare treasure. Although the C family didn't possess a true rank 5-star soldier, just this clue alone was enough to bring about a calamity of extermination. Originally, this clue was the C family's biggest secret and should have been kept very well. Outsiders shouldn't know about it at all. However, back then, the C family's patriarch and Hong Martial Divine sect's patriarch Shi Shenhong were best friends. During a conversation, C family's patriarch Si Shinyong accidentally revealed this clue and instructed Shi Shenhong to never reveal this information. Shi Shenhong naturally promised repeatedly, but when he returned to Hong Martial Divine sect, he immediately reported this matter to Hong Martial Shengzhen's upper echelons. What happened next was naturally self-evident. Hong Martial Shengzhen sent out experts at the divine devil transformation and exterminated the C family in a single night. And because Shi Shenhong was meritorious for revealing this secret, he was rewarded with many cultivation resources. Originally, Shi Shenhong's aptitude wasn't particularly good. But because of these cultivation resources, his cultivation rose steadily over the past 10,000 years and he jumped into the mid-stage God domain transformation. Moreover, he smoothly became the sect master of Hong Martial Divine sect. After Si Chiyu found out about this, he had already made up his mind to kill Shi Shenhong. Thus, he changed his name to Si Chiyu and smoothly entered Hong Martial Divine sect. Moreover, under continuous cultivation, his cultivation smoothly reached the early stage God domain transformation. However, Si Chiyu knew that his aptitude was limited. The early stage God domain transformation was already his limit. Unless he came across an unexpected opportunity, it would be difficult for him to advance. However, Shi Shenhong was different. He had made a great contribution and was rewarded with many resources and powerful divine artifacts by Hong Martial Shengzhen. Unless his cultivation was stronger than Shi Shenhong, there was no way he could kill Shi Shenhong. Back then, he cooperated with Luo Lingyu because Luo Lingyu's aptitude was much better than his. He believed that Luo Lingyu would definitely surpass Shi Shenhong one day and kill him. Therefore, he proposed to cooperate and let Luo Lingyu go. But now, not only did Zhuoan obtain the 3-fire true mirror, but he also gained the recognition of the artifact spirit and could use the 3-fire true mirror's power. The three-fire true mirror's power was much stronger than his. He believed that the three-fire true mirror could heavily injure or even kill Shi Shinhong. Chapter 38-72. Shi Shinhong, you must die today. Sikong Chiyu recalled the annihilated Sea clan, and her eyes became incomparably red. Her attacks became even fiercer. Shi Shinhong's complexion was not too good. Although he could feel the faintly discernible hostility from Sikong Chiyu towards him in the past, he had always thought that Sikong Chiyu was the successor of the Sea clan. But he had always thought that this was because Sikong Chiyu coveted his position as sect master. Although he was on guard, he didn't care too much about it. Because as far as he was concerned, with Sikong Chiyu's natural talent and strength, once he stepped down from the position of sect master in the future, he would naturally pass the position of sect master to Sikong Chiyu. But what he didn't expect was that Sikong Chiyu revealing hostility towards him was entirely because of Sea clan's matter. This was a situation of life and death. Sikong Chiyu, get out of my way. Shi Shinhong roared, but his heart was strong but not enough. His divine soul still retained the sword intent of the purple-gold greatsword. He was barely able to resist this sword intent and was unable to unleash all of his strength. Sikong Chiyu naturally also saw Shi Shinhong's decline. Her attacks became fiercer and fiercer, more and more terrifying. She very well carried out the principle of taking your life while you're down. Senior Sikong, get out of the way. Suddenly, Zhuowen's solemn voice came from behind Sikong Chiyu. Sikong Chiyu was overjoyed. She desperately used her strongest attack and broke away from Shi Shinhong's battle. Then, she saw Zhuowen behind her, holding the Tri-Fire True Mirror in one hand. And above him, an endless sea of blood flames rapidly condensed into a blood mountain burning with raging blood flames. Zhuowen's gaze was cold and emotionless. His right hand formed a sword finger, pointing to the horizon, and then suddenly swung down. The blood mountain in the sky fell down at a terrifying speed, leaving behind a bright blood trail in the air. Shi Shinhong's pupils shrank. He wanted to retreat, but no matter how he retreated, he was already locked on by the blood mountain's aura. So what if he retreated? The blood mountain's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it landed on Shi Shinhong's body. Immediately after, the terrifying blood flames exploded. The deafening explosion engulfed the surrounding several trillion miles. As for Zhuowen and Sikong Chiyu, the two of them had already left in advance. The valley below and the endless mountain range around the valley were all gradually annihilated, disappearing, and collapsing in the blood flames. In the end, the mountain range became a bottomless abyss. Above the abyss, endless bloody flames burned as if they would never be extinguished. Puchi. Zhuowen suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his complexion was ghastly pale. He swiftly withdrew the Tri-Fire True Mirror and subconsciously distanced himself from Sikong Chiyu. Sikong Chiyu glanced indifferently at Zhuowen and said, "Zhuowen, don't worry. I, Sikong Chiyu, am not such a lowly person. It was all thanks to your help that I was able to kill Shi Shinhong. I can swear that I won't snatch the Three-Fire True Mirror from you, and I owe you a favor." Zhuowen still looked at Sikong Chiyu vigilantly. He was not a newborn calf. Just based on Sikong Chiyu's words, he would not foolishly believe it. Sikong Chiyu did not care about the suspicious look in Zhuowen's eyes either. Instead, his gaze landed on that valley where Shi Shinhong was at. More accurately speaking, it was already not a valley now, but a bottomless abyss. Above this abyss, boundless bloody flames floated. He revealed a trace of relief. He truly could not sense Shi Shinhong's aura anymore. Under such a horrifying attack, Sikong Chiyu thought that this Shi Shinhong should not be able to survive either. But it was at this instant that Sikong Chiyu relaxed, that a strong ominous feeling welled up in his heart. It was only to see a divine spear suddenly extend out of the void behind Sikong Chiyu, swiftly sweeping toward Sikong Chiyu's back. Sikong Chiyu's pupils constricted, but his reaction was extremely fast. The instant the divine spear swept over, his body immediately shifted to one side, dodging this sure-hit divine spear. But the divine spear's speed was too fast. Even though Sikong Chiyu avoided his vitals, he was still struck by this divine spear on his left shoulder blade. It was only to see fresh blood spurt out from his left shoulder blade. Sikong Chiyu gave a muffled groan and fell down from midair in a sorry state. When Sikong Chiyu barely managed to stabilize his figure in midair, the divine spear in the void vortex swept out completely. And what came out together with the divine spear was also a figure. Shi Shenhong. Sikong Chiyu's pupils constricted, only feeling incredulous as he stared fixedly at this man holding the divine spear. He was precisely Shi Shenhong. It was just that Shi Shenhong was currently in an extremely sorry state. The clothes on his entire body were utterly tattered. Even his hair was burned away by the bloody flames, becoming bald. "You're actually not dead." Sikong Chiyu looked at Shi Shenhong in disbelief. Under such a horrifying attack, apart from Shi Shenhong being a little wretched, he did not suffer too many injuries. Shi Shenhong grinned and said, "Sikong Chiyu, your understanding of me is still too little. Do you know what the divine spear in my hand is?" Only then did Sikong Chiyu's attention land on the divine spear in Shi Shenhong's hand. He sensed the berserk aura flowing out from inside the divine spear. His pupils constricted and he said in a low voice, "This is a heaven-breaking rank 7 divine artifact." Ha! Yes, this spear is called Limitless Space-Piercing Spear. It's connected to a certain dimensional space. The power of the 3-fire true mirror is indeed very powerful. But I made use of this spear to enter the dimensional space and avoid that level of attack. Shi Shenhong's eyes became increasingly pleased with himself. His right hand suddenly waved. A horrifying spear intent swept out, turning into a violent gale, rumbling towards the Zhuoan not far away. Originally, Zhuoan planned on fleeing right away the instant Shi Shenhong appeared. Now, seeing Shi Shenhong's attack with his eyes, he knew that he could not leave anymore. His eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. He took out several purple gold greatswords and slashed on top of this spear intent. Puchi. Zhuoan discovered to his shock that the purple gold greatswords were easily minced by the spear intent. Then, they landed directly on his body. His entire body blossomed with bright blood, and his entire person fell to the ground in a sorry state. And the instant Zhuoan landed on the ground, Shi Shenhong moved. He shot out like lightning. His target was shockingly Zhuoan. Zhuoan used the 3-fire true mirror one after another and was already unbearably weak. How could he possibly be Shi Shenhong's match? The instant Shi Shenhong landed beside him, he punched Zhuoan in the abdomen. Zhuoan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and knelt on the ground on one knee. His breathing became extremely hurried. Shi Shenhong took out a ring and took it out, enveloping Zhuoan's surroundings. It turned into a golden light screen, wrapping Zhuoan's entire person inside. After doing these, Shi Shenhong no longer paid attention to Zhuoan. Instead, he rushed out explosively, heading toward Sikong Chiyu not far away. Chapter 3873. Sikong Chiyu was frightened out of his wits. The instant Shi Shenhong bound Zhuoan, he unleashed his movement technique and desperately fled into the distance. After the Tri-Fire True Mirror's attack failed, he knew that he no longer had the chance to kill Shi Shenhong. Rumble. A terrifying momentum resounded from the space beside Sikong Chiyu. Then, that space collapsed as a divine spear brimming with mighty divine might shot toward Sikong Chiyu's ribs at an extremely tricky angle. Sikong Chiyu's pupils constricted. His feet took a profound step, barely dodging this divine spear. The divine spear swept past his side, and then under Sikong Chiyu's disbelieving gaze, the divine spear suddenly swept, the body of the spear heavily smashing into Sikong Chiyu's ribs. Puchi. Sikong Chiyu spat out a mouthful of blood, his figure flew out in a sorry state. The terrifying spear intent drilled into his body like maggots, wantonly destroying all the meridians in his body. A palm suddenly grasped the divine spear's handle, and then the space shattered, and Shi Shenhong's tyrannical figure stepped out. I'm a person who cherishes talent. If you weren't a member of the Xi family, I would definitely spare your life. Speaking up to here, Shi Shenhong sighed rather regretfully, and continued, unfortunately, you're actually a member of the Xi family, so you must die. Rumble. As soon as his voice fell, Shi Shenhong's eyes surged with killing intent. His right foot took a step forward, and layers of phantoms overlapped in the air, and he appeared in front of Sikong Chiyu before the phantoms disappeared. Sikong Chiyu sighed lightly. He knew that he couldn't escape death today. Since he had to die in the end, he would rather die in battle. Clang! A piercing cold light rose and broke through the sky. Sikong Chiyu drew his divine saber, his eyes overflowing with battle intent, and saber light flickered. Futile resistance. Shi Shenhong's eyes flashed with ridicule. The divine spear in his hand swept out, and the spear flickered with vast divine might. Only to hear a clang, the saber and spear collided, and dazzling sparks burst forth in the void. Layers of formless energy ripples spread out in all directions in a ring-shaped direction. With the divine spear in hand, Shi Shenhong's attacks were grand and powerful. He was like an invincible god. Sikong Chiyu practically resisted with all his might, and he exerted all his ability. But the numerous layers of saber insight he executed were all easily dealt with by Shi Shenhong. Sikong Chiyu discovered sorrowfully that the disparity between her and Shi Shenhong was too great. It wasn't just because of the difference in cultivation, but also because of the divine artifacts they possessed. Sikong Chiyu's divine saber was only a rank 6 divine weapon while Shi Shenhong's divine spear was a rank 7 divine weapon. The two simply weren't on the same level. Kacha. The two of them exchanged a few hundred moves in succession. Suddenly, the divine blade in Sikong Chiyu's hand emitted a sound that caused one's heart to palpitate. After that, Sikong Chiyu discovered to her astonishment that countless cracks had appeared on the surface of her divine blade. These cracks were as messy and dense as a spider web, and they continued to spread out from the surface of the blade as if they were alive. Finally, with a crisp sound, the divine blade collapsed, shattering into countless metal pieces. Shi Shenhong laughed nastily. His right hand that was holding the spear suddenly tightened. Then, with a shake of his wrist, the divine spear swept over and smashed into Sikong Chiyu's chest. Pft! Sikong Chiyu spat out a mouthful of blood. Her chest caved in several inches, and she fell from the sky in a sorry state. After smashing through several mountain peaks, she finally collapsed in a valley. Shi Shenhong landed in the valley expressionlessly. He silently looked at Sikong Chiyu who was lying in the center of the valley. Sikong Chiyu also silently looked at Shi Shenhong. Her eyes revealed despair and resentment. Sikong Chiyu, your greatest failure was to cooperate with that Aunt Zhuoan and prematurely exposed your identity. Shi Shenhong said indifferently. Winner takes all, there's nothing to say about this. After Sikong Chiyu said this, she silently closed her eyes. She had already accepted her fate. She had concealed herself for close to 10,000 years just to kill Shi Shenhong. But after today, she had lost all of her chances. She couldn't even keep her life. Shi Shenhong was expressionless. Divine power surged in his right palm, manifesting a divine power rope that completely bound Sikong Chiyu. Shi Shenhong lifted Sikong Chiyu and left the valley. After a short while, he once again arrived at Zhuowen's location. He saw Zhuowen sitting dispiritedly inside the light shield formed by the ring. He heard the sound of Shi Shenhong's figure flashing past and slowly raised his head. His eyes were filled with unwillingness. Shi Shenhong silently looked at the light shield surface that was slightly dim. He sneered and said, "This ring is also a heaven-breaking rank 7 divine artifact. In your current state, you can't break it at all. No need to struggle in vain." Zhuowen's face was gloomy. Especially when he saw the half-dead Sikong Chiyu in Shi Shenhong's hand, a trace of despair rose in his heart. The gap between him and Shi Shenhong was really too big. His current cultivation was only at the middle stage of the Void God transformation. Even his divine soul cultivation was only at the heaven-breaking 6th transformation. The reason why he dared to cooperate with Sikong Chiyu to deal with Shi Shenhong was mainly because of the 3-Fire True Mirror's power. Unfortunately, the 3-Fire True Mirror failed on the verge of success in the end. And now, he had no means to deal with Shi Shenhong at all. Right now, he was a fish on Shi Shenhong's chopping board, at his mercy. Shi Shenhong saw Zhuowen remain silent and his brows furrowed slightly. He continued, "You don't have to pretend to be mute. Hand over the 3-Fire True Mirror now and perhaps I might be lenient." Zhuowen sneered and still didn't speak. He knew that it was useless to say anything. Shi Shenhong snorted coldly. He lifted Zhuowen by the collar and unceremoniously tore off the spirit ring on his finger. However, after his divine sense destroyed the restrictions on the surface of the spirit ring, his expression instantly became ugly. Because, he only found a small amount of chaos crystals and low-grade divine medicines in the spirit ring. There was no trace of the 3-Fire True Mirror at all. "Speak. Where exactly is the 3-Fire True Mirror?" You actually have another world on you?" As Shi Shenhong spoke, he suddenly let out a soft sound of surprise. When his divine sense swept over Zhuowen's body, he detected an abnormality. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. His great world had always been hidden very well. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to detect it at all. Could it be that Shi Shenhong could detect his great world? Shi Shenhong's divine sense swept over again, and a trace of mockery appeared in his eyes. Then, Zhuowen saw Shi Shenhong holding the divine spear and suddenly thrust it at his shoulder. All of a sudden, wherever the divine spear passed by, the surrounding space would collapse. Shi Shenhong's divine spear was called the Boundless Sky-Piercing Spear. It could pass through most dimensional spaces at will. Zhuowen's great world could actually be considered a type of dimensional space. With the characteristics of the Boundless Sky-Piercing Spear, it wasn't difficult to break through dimensional spaces and find Zhuowen's great world. Pfft! Zhuowen's shoulder blade was pierced, and blood spurted out, forming a bright rain of blood in the air, rustling as it fell. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.